Yes, it's the gump creaking. Exactly, Paul.
The gump, my chair.
Who's talking to me right now? Oh.
It's always your Discord.
Yeah, always my Discord, exactly. How can I turn on stream remote? Come on, just let me do it. Okay, turn that off. Let's see. I'll disconnect from Discord. That's what I'll do.
Yeah.
Quit Discord. All right. Got that. I should have all the sounds this time, Paul, in my soundboard. Yes.
Speaking of which, should I start recording on my end, or should I wait till?
Oh, I need to hit record over here. Jeez. Now I'm going to be off. Okay, so here's what we're going to do, guys. We're going to try one of these magical all clap at the same time things.
You know that never works out, right?
On 3.
Oh, on 3, not
on
three.
Not after 3. On 3.
And go.
I say 3. You should be clapping. Okay?
I don't like these when it's on 3. It's supposed to be 1, 2, 3, and clap.
Well, it's going to be on 3, so just deal with it.
Dislike.
Okay.
So much tension.
Ready? Here we go. 1, 2, 3. All right, that's good enough.
Slow and boring.
We're not in the podcast. Why would it not be slow and boring?
No,
hey, Apple Dance.
Oh
my goodness.
Just think you got your tragic maker over with, Ashley.
No. Did I? Though?
Wait, what would have been her tragic
clapping.
maker?
On 3.
Oh my gosh.
It is a tragedy, but alas, it is not my tragic maker.
Alrighty. Let's see. I think we're pretty much ready to start, guys. I know it's craziness. We're not like behind the ball or anything.
Get on with it. Yes, get on with it.
Since you haven't done the intro or started anything, hi, Apple Dance.
I said hi to Apple Dance.
I'm going to say hi, too. Hi.
Okay, go for it. Then I guess thumbs up, guys, if you're ready to actually start to get this show on the road.
Hey, your jacket looks like mine.
Well, it's the same jacket.
I know.
That's weird. How are you wearing the same jacket at the same time?
I
You
bought
must have
two
a
of
time
them.
machine or something.
I bought 2 of them.
I'm ready to read my amazing agreement, whatever you want.
Go for it. Yes, go for it, James. Please do that.
All right. Your name. No, wait.
Everyone with that.
It's low hanging fruit.
It's the running gag, yeah. I, James Harleman, give permission to Francisco Ruiz and the Retro Rewind podcast to use my video, voice, and vocal commentary recorded within the Retro Rewind podcast in any past, present, and future recordings of the Retro Rewind podcast in any and all media in perpetuity without any restrictions and with no expectation to receive compensation now or in the future as it relates to any past, present, and future recordings of the Retro Rewind podcast. Blech. There you go.
Thank you very much. I just realized, how would I use your vocal commentary in past podcast episodes? But that's neither here nor there.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
In case
out of my
we
head.
can do it. We have the technology.
Exactly. We do have the time machine technology, so it is possible. So it's good that I have that in there. Okay. Thank you so much, James.
And thank you, Apple Dance.
Yeah, that's a very sweet comment. And then, hey, Dale, we're tie my feet together. What does that have to do with anything?
I think it's a reference.
Oh, right.
Well,
I
he
forgot.
doesn't mean to, right?
Yeah.
Okay, guys, here we go. We're going to go ahead and start. Ashley, are you ready? Do you want to do a dry read first before we start?
What do you want? Do you want me to read it like her and say, you'll be rather attractive one day? Not at all beautiful, you understand, but you have a certain prettiness, different from my other heads. I believe I'll lock you in the tower for a few years until your head is ready. And you can pass the time by listening to this episode of the Retro Rewind podcast.
So the only...
What do you want?
The only thing I would say is, as you're saying, I'll lock you in the tower for a few years until your head is ready, you get more menacing. Like, I believe I'll lock you in the tower for a few years until your head is ready.
You just wish you could mimic a female voice. Otherwise, you do it yourself.
This is true.
I know how... No, I know you. This is exactly what you would do. Okay, so say, you will be rather attractive one day. Not at all beautiful, you understand, but you have a certain prettiness, different from my other heads. I believe I'll lock you in the tower for a few years until your head is ready. And you can pass the time by listening to this episode of the Retro Rewind podcast.
Print.
So pass the time, comma, by. Sorry.
Fine.
But otherwise, yes. Okay, perfect. Awesome. We'll go ahead and go with that. So whenever you're ready, Ashley, go for real.
Okay. You will be rather attractive one day. Not at all beautiful, you understand, but you have a certain prettiness, different from my other heads. I believe I'll lock you in the tower for a few years until your head is ready, and you can pass the time by listening to this episode of the Retro Rewind podcast.
Reflux capacitors, fluxing, crew to stations. Scanning for, return to Oz, 1985. Prepare to rewind in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome, Rewinders and new listeners, to the Retro Rewind podcast, where we take a fresh look at movies and games from 15 or more years ago. I'm your captain of the pod, Francisco Ruiz, and I'm joined by your XO and mine, Paul, the soundboarder, master interrupter Powers.
Hey, Francisco, I just hope this is the right movie to cover, because if not, I don't think I'm the only one going bye-bye.
Right? Also, for this discussion of the film Return to Oz, we welcome aboard for the first time pastor at Refuge Church, author of Cinemagogue, and co-host of the Popcorn Theology podcast, James Harleman. Hey, James.
Hey, before we get started, could you wind up my thoughts? Because I think they're running a little low.
Oh, sure.
There we go.
Do you need your actions wound up too?
No, they're good to go.
Okay, awesome.
Unless I suddenly stop in the middle or something. I mean, then you'll just know.
Oh, yeah, of course. In addition, we're glad to have back aboard not a machine, but the administration officer of the pod, Ashley Ruiz. Hey, Ashley.
Hey, I put on my best head for this occasion. I hope it looks natural. Is it straight?
Oh, is that the number 4 or the number 30? I'm not
No,
sure.
it's number 36.
Ah,
See,
okay.
it has to coincide with one's natural age. So,
Yes, it looks very nice on you. Very
thank
becoming.
you. I'm glad you can't see the seams like you could with Mombi.
My gosh. Now they have a quick flyby of who we are. Paul, can you give us a quick overview of the production specs for Return to Oz?
Sure. Return to Oz is an animated television special. First aired February 9th, 1964, and runs 51 minutes. It's directed by F.R. Crawley, Thomas Glynn, and Larry Romer.
Really?
By
Oh.
Romeo Mueller, based on the novel by L. Frank Baum.
Paul, this is Return to Oz?
Yes, Return
You
to
know,
Oz.
I think I watched the wrong one. I watched the 1985 version that we talked about reviewing.
Well, that's weird.
I was going to say, lucky for both of you, I read all the books, so we're
Oh,
good.
oh, fantastic.
Okay,
Okay,
great.
We got
Excellent.
all our bases
Yeah.
covered.
So did I watch the wrong one?
Yes, you watched the
All
wrong
right,
one,
hold
Paul.
on. Let me go watch the 1985 one.
Yes, yes.
All right, Return to Oz, June 21st, 1985.
Yes.
This one runs an hour and 53 minutes and is rated PG, and it was directed by Walter Murch. It was also written by Walter, along with Gil Dennis, and based on the books by L. Frank Baum. See, it's the same movie.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah.
With the lead stars being Fairuza Balk, Nicole Williamson, and Gene Marsh. The music was composed by David Shire. Are you ready for the box office trivia?
I am ready. Ashley and James, are you guys ready?
You know it.
Okay.
And everyone here live in chat is welcome to join in as well. Go for it, Paul.
All right, Return to Oz was made for about $25 million and earned just over $10 million in the box office.
Yikes.
So given this fact, how high in the box office do you think it ranks among the movies released theatrically in 1985? And because this came out in 1985, we'll go for the top 85.
Okay. James, what is your guess for where this ranks among other 1985 films?
Oh boy, I'm gonna go low based on that, and I'm gonna go 81.
81. All right. Ashley, what do you think?
That was the number that I was going to go with because it was the year that you were born. I'm like,
Uh-huh.
I can't go with mine, 86. I can't
Yeah.
do it because it doesn't count.
Yeah.
So let's go with 72.
72. All right. Then in chat, it looks like no one's ever, it's a mystery. No one has any idea. And that's understandable because I have no idea either. I'm going to go with my lucky number 13, even though it's probably way wrong.
Absolutely not. Do you know what movies came out in 1985?
But, well, Back to the Future for one. But Paul, where did this actually end up among the other 85 films?
This came in at 74. So
Whoa,
actually,
well
Yes.
done.
Woo-hoo.
Nice.
Good job. Alrighty. Well, thank you for those factoids, Paul, and let's see if any of them factor into our memory mind meld or subsequent roundtable discussion, which we'll get into once Alice has located our target film.
Alert, alert. Target located. Spoilers incoming. Establishing analysis vector.
No, Bruno, you don't understand. This was...
Edna Mode.
I'd like to say that that's the first time you've done something like that, but that would be a lie.
I've never done 2x speed on one of these before. All right, here we go. Try that again.
It's just a yellow brick. No, Bruno, you don't understand. This was the yellow brick road.
Remember Dorothy from Kansas? She's off on a brand new adventure with wonderful new friends. A talking chicken, Jack the Pumpkinhead, Tick-Tock, the Gump.
It was a novel experience, wasn't it?
And more motion picture excitement than you ever thought possible. Return to Oz.
Yes, more excitement than you ever thought possible. In fact, it's probably too much for us to remember. But alas, we did our best to account for all the things we remembered, and we put them together in our memory and mind meld synopsis for Return to Oz. Electric shock therapy sends discount Dorothy back to Oz. Wait, they're giving Dorothy electric shock therapy? Dang, this movie's gonna be dark, like Dark Crystal, dark. Take notes, up-and-coming Tim Burton. Dorothy runs from the Wheelers, finds a Chinese social media app to help her, and almost loses her head. Dorothy winds up that clockwork man, and my love of steampunk begins, even though the term steampunk wouldn't be coined until 2 years later. The water boy's girlfriend, wow, finds herself at the mercy of a head-swapping ruler and steals her baby powder to bring a moose-headed couch to life to help her and her friends escape from her clutches. Who her? Which her? I don't know. In the Gnome King's man cave, chicken lays egg in Mountain King's mouth, and that defeats him because eggs are poison, and a blonde girl reappears, claiming to be queen. Yeah, I mean, none of that was inaccurate, except for a lot of it. Yes, that was decepted, but based on those memories as flawed as they were, what range did they lead you to predict for this film before rewatching it? Classic, nostalgic, or tragic? Let's begin with James. What was your prediction for Return to Oz?
Well, I kind of went with nostalgic, and here's why.
Okay.
I remember loving it, but part of the reason I think I loved it was because I hated musicals.
Oh, okay.
And so just the simple fact, and actually the rest of my family loved musicals, and we must have watched the original Wizard of Oz like 1 billion times.
Oh, okay.
And
as
so
any good family would.
Yeah. And I hated that movie so much. I have repented of my hatred of musicals, so I have grown as a person. But so in light of that, I figured, all right, well, looking back then, I probably loved this film just to be contrarian.
Oh,
So
gotcha.
There might be a little more nostalgia here than actual classic.
Gotcha. Now I'm curious. You've given musicals another chance. Do you still hate the original Wizard of Oz?
I mean,
I'll take that as a yes. So we can be buddies now, James, because I don't like Wizard of Oz either.
How many times have you seen the full movie, Francisco?
Once was enough, Paul. Ashley, what was your prediction for Return to Oz?
Tragic.
Tragic.
And here's why.
Mm-hmm.
I have read all of L. Frank Baum's Oz books,
Mm-hmm.
and this movie attempts to make a sequel to the original Wizard of Oz by making an amalgamation of 2 books.
Mm-hmm.
Some things they got right, some things they got horribly wrong. And from what I remember, I've read through the 14 books at least twice that I can remember.
Wow.
And I have such a love of the books.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to this movie, the last time I watched it before this rewatch, left a sour taste in my mouth, and I kept comparing everything back to the original source material, and I just developed this hatred for this movie because everything just felt wrong.
I can see that because I've also read the books, and each of the 2 books that it's based on is a good enough story within itself that they could each do a movie by itself. So
Absolutely.
okay.
I understand that.
That's true of so many of the books. Maybe not necessarily every last book in the 14 book series, but there's several standouts that you easily could have made.
Absolutely. Yeah, that makes sense. I have not read the books myself. James, have you read any of the Wizard of Oz books or Oz books?
I have also read all of the books, and
okay.
and I also have a huge compendium of Scotty Young's adaptation as Marvel Comics did, and
Nice.
Oh, really?
wonderful adaptation. If for people who can't actually read books but will read graphic novels, just to throw that out there.
Well, that's cool.
Scotty Young's art is amazing.
Yeah, and so there is a lot. So I'm quite familiar with them as well. Yeah.
Very, very cool. Okay, so I'm the sole non-reader. I can't even read. Paul, what was your prediction for Return to Oz?
Tragic as well, not
okay.
based on the movie adaptation, but just remember the times that I did watch it, not holding my interest enough to want to watch it again anytime soon.
Okay, that's fair. For me, before I get to me, in chat, let's see. D-Tung says Ashley is correct. Okay. And then Dale says tragic was his prediction. For me, I actually predicted nostalgic because growing up, I thought maybe it was similar to you, James. I did not like The Wizard of Oz. I thought it was just dumb. But this sort of appealed to me in some way. I thought there was some adventure to it. I thought the Wheelers always creeped me out, and I thought the Jack Pumpkinhead, some of the other characters were cool, especially TikTok. I thought was a cool character. So that's why I predicted nostalgic. But it'll be interesting to see if those predictions come true. However, first we have to get into our discussion of things we liked most about Return to Oz. So let's spin up our
Best bets.
Yes, our top 3 things. And let's begin with James. What's one thing you liked about Return to Oz?
Oh my! Here's where the fight begins.
Okay.
Already.
Already.
Ding, ding, ding. Let's go.
Well, I have some broad and specific likes, and I was going to start broad. And the first one, we'll see if it enrages Ashley and Paul, is that I love the way that it is far more faithful to the Weird and Wonderful L. Frank Baum books than most of the other adaptations we've ever gotten. Characters look like the Denslow and Neil illustrations.
Yeah, they're based on the book illustrations, right?
Yeah, that looks great. Dorothy is actually a 10-year-old girl instead of a 16-year-old that still has a 10-year-old's imagination. I don't know.
So what age is Dorothy supposed to be?
10.
Okay,
About
10.
10.
Yeah.
Okay, so the original Wizard of Oz, she was essentially too old, or they had an actress.
She was 17 in real life, but she tried to play younger.
She tried.
10. I think she failed.
I think in the movie version they say she's 12 to try to help offset it a little bit, but
Still doesn't work.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. But so okay. Thank you for clarifying that, guys.
Yeah, and it's weird because the books are weird, and
Right.
that whimsy. Oh, the musical movie is funny, but it's a different type of comedy, and I felt like even though this does jam different ideas together in a weird remix, I felt like it's more faithful. I would have loved to see like Harry Potter's 8 movies. I would have loved to have seen the whole series done kind of by some of these people and with Ferozu Balk. Like I would have watched the heck out of that as a kid.
Very cool. Like almost like I know the BBC did a like series for Chronicles of Narnia, and lots of people love that.
They were fantastic.
Okay,
Yeah.
I've never even seen it. So,
Well, fantastic, maybe a little too high.
Fantastic when I
Puppet
was a
Aslan.
child.
Yeah.
Yeah.
all right.
Well,
Well,
they were fantasy, so yes, fantastical in that approach. Yes.
okay. All right. So I'm gonna go off yours. Your like James with mine because it's also a very broad one, and I felt like this movie was actually paced remarkably well. I was like invested at every step of the way. I felt like whenever I never felt like there was really a dull moment throughout. Maybe a little bit when they're flying, but even then it's only a quick like, okay, let's take a nap. and then things are crazy again because the knots and even the knot sort of coming loose, it sort of amps you up like, okay, what is this? What is this? All heck going to break loose. So I thought the movie was paced actually really well, and I really enjoyed that.
I agree.
facet.
One of its, I think this movie's crowning achievements that didn't make my like is even though it's based on two different books, those books are very different from each other. And somehow this movie was able to combine it and make a cohesive story. So that in itself, I think, is an achievement. So,
Well, what's something else that you thought was an achievement that did make your like list, Paul?
I thought the acting by Fairuza Balk in this was well done. She played it very believable, and I didn't have this sense like, oh, she's overreacting or under, like you get a lot from child stars. So I think she helped grounded this fantasy movie.
Okay. Yeah. Am I crazy though, guys? Her eyes seem so big, like so big.
They are, but
They
that's
are.
not her
They're
fault.
not Anna Taylor-Joy big.
Yeah.
No.
Who
they're
is
not.
that? I don't know who that is.
Her eyes aren't like bugging out of her head by any means, but she's like wide-eyed because she's a child in this immersive world and she's just experiencing all these fantastical things. And imagine for a second if you were a child in this fantasy world.
I
Would
was
your
never a
eyes
child.
Be all wide-eyed
believe
and
it.
just be like astounded like mine are right now. It's something that happens when you're just surrounded by all these fantastical elements. And if you saw a character like TikTok, I imagine that your eyes would do very much the same thing, even though it'd be a lot harder to see behind those glasses and those bushes.
I'm not saying it's a bad thing by any stretch. I just want to be validated that they were really big.
She has large eyes.
Okay.
It's a very sweet feature of her. Like it's a very like you can see the expressions. And her eyes would just express so many different things in the scenes, whether it was fear or excitement or sorrow. She was actually one of my likes too.
Oh, I was just about to ask.
Yeah, so Fairuza Balk definitely was one of my likes. It was one that I had actually called. Something that really stood out to me, though, was just how immersive the world of Oz was between the matte background paintings and the different sets, the Gnome King's Mountain, the palace at Oz, the broken up yellow brick road, completely dismantled. I feel like the set designer did an incredible job just making you feel like you were in a dilapidated version of Oz where things are run down, where people are turned to stone. Between the statues and all of the other artistic choices that they made that made it into the sets.
Absolutely.
It was very immersive, and you definitely felt like you weren't in England where everything was filmed in the same area, but they used different places, and that set designer did a great job, and those matte backgrounds were gorgeous. Even the blue screen work when they were flying on the couch, usually you're just like, that doesn't look right, but I thought it looked pretty good for the time.
Yeah. I feel like there's one green screen shot where I'm like, that seems weird, but everything else seemed like it was fairly. It felt like it was real. I felt like a lot of it was as much. I mean, there was obviously no CG in this, but so it was very practical, and so I really appreciated that. Let's go back to you, James. What's something you really appreciate about this?
Oh boy. Well, this one, I'm going to blame my wife for this one.
Okay.
When you're married for over 20 years, you start to pick up someone else's passions. And
absolutely, yes.
It was stunning when the door opened and we saw Nurse Wilson in that black dress.
Oh,
remember that? She's like she should not, like a nurse should not be in this bizarre black looking dress.
Yeah.
Yes.
It looked like something like it was Kate Hawley did all the costumes for Crimson Peak. If you've seen that Guillermo del Toro movie, like it looks like Colleen Atwood's another great. My wife is huge on knowing the costume designers and costuming.
Oh, cool, nice.
And so like I literally stopped the movie. I called her in. I was like, you have to come look at this. And it's supposed to kind of evoke the Wicked Witch of the West.
I could see that. Yeah.
And then that goes on, right? Because then Mombi's dress is fantastic. So the costuming and for all the characters was really impressive. And of course, really mundane for the characters in Kansas, but for everyone else throughout the movie, it was just like from that one moment, which is the one part that doesn't make sense. Again, is why a nurse is wearing that dress. But from there to Oz, you get all these fantastic costumes.
Well, I think it adds to the creepiness that something here is off.
Yeah, absolutely.
She doesn't work for the money. She just works to fill her day because obviously she's coming from wealth if she's wearing a dress like that.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm just here to cause pain.
And why she's being carted away I'm still confused why she's being carted away to jail at the end.
Because I think they found the people that didn't make it through successfully up in their attic during the.
I thought they were in the basement.
Or the basement, wherever. They said everyone escaped but the doctor. So that includes those patients where they said they never had any problems, and then that's all coming out. I think that's why she's.
Was that in like an extended cut? I don't remember anything about that.
You got to pay attention, Francisco.
Yeah. I don't think you were paying all that close attention in the very beginning part of the movie. It was something that the blonde character when she was taking Dorothy through.
No, at the end, I don't remember them really going to jail or anything like that.
Being carted away.
No, she's being carted away because she makes the blonde character in the beginning makes mention of the people in the basement.
Yeah, I do remember that.
Okay.
Yes. I just don't remember.
You don't remember her being carted away. Okay.
Not really, no.
It's fine.
A line of dialogue at the end.
Yeah, she was just kind of standing there.
Would have been nice.
Oh, yes. Okay.
I did, like, you can sort of work it out if you think about maybe she's getting caught. Maybe they're accusing her of that. It felt like you could
bringing
put
her
that
in
together.
For questioning.
But a line of dialogue from when they're explaining a hit by lightning, they could have made that a little more.
Yes, cohesive. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Yes. Ashley, what's something else you liked about Return to Oz?
I really enjoyed the character design. Just they were so beautifully inspired, and something that James said earlier, that they were based on the original designs from the illustrations of the book. And watching this movie, I'm like, yeah, they actually do, because I had hardback versions of these that I would get from the library growing up, and the illustrations would be in there, and I'm like, anytime I would go back and watch the original Wizard of Oz, I'm like, they don't look like that. None of them look like that. Where is this coming from? And it was so refreshing to actually see where the inspiration came from. And I always thought the Scarecrow looked super weird in this, but all of the characters in Paul's background, like, they all looked super weird. I'm like, that doesn't look. But then after I read the books, I'm like, this makes sense now.
Yeah,
like they're wonderfully faithful in the character design and just faithfulness in the characters themselves for the most part. And having you read a book and see something that comes of it and go, the things that they did well, they did very, very well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, very cool. I mean, again, me not having any sort of perspective on the book, all I would be able to add to that is that the designs, and I think it goes whether it's the costuming or the makeup or the creature designs in this seem so much more vivid and grounded than the 50s or whenever the original Wizard of Oz designs were. Yeah,
1939.
Not that I can expect. I guess I can't really expect as much from a movie from. Wait, it came out in 1939.
1939. Yes.
They had color back then.
Yes, it was a new trope. They made the first part of the movie deliberately in black and white.
Yes, I
so
realize
they
that,
could actually demonstrate their new colorization. That's exactly why it was made the way that it was.
I didn't think we had color until the 50s.
Came out
but
the same year, and that was in color.
Anyway, Paul, what was something you liked?
I'm really impressed with movies that use effects from the 80s that still hold up to today. When some of them don't, but some of the, like when the wheelers go into the sand and it's immediately turned into sand, I thought was a great effect that still holds up.
Yeah,
and my
absolutely.
favorite effect is the rock faces. The animations in the rocks, I thought they still hold up quite beautifully today, the animation.
I mean, I may have some more to say about that later, but okay.
Oh, you can make rocks animate better? Fine. Be
Let's see you do it.
I will do it. You'll see. You'll see.
I agree with Paul there. Just to be clear, that was one that I couldn't. I wanted to include that as a fourth. So thank you, Paul.
You're welcome. Yeah.
And I thought we could be friends, James. One more thing I liked before we get to our classic makers, our favorite things about Return to Oz, for me was actually I really appreciated the voice acting of like the Rocks, of the Gnome King, of Gump. They were just so rich and vibrant, and even Jack. I think Brian Henson voiced Jack.
It was Brian Henson.
It gave such realness to these characters, and I don't know why. I'm trying to think if I don't think that's certainly. I don't think it's something that today you don't find that. I don't think that's the case. But I guess I was surprised that these were so lifelike, and the voices I think add so much.
Well, that's because
to
they're
those.
they're not voiced by celebrity actors now.
That's
trying to
what it is.
That's probably why.
Yes.
Giving voice to the characters instead of just using whatever voice is tied to the people they paid the most money to.
Right,
Yes,
for
yes.
promotional purposes.
So, real quick, just a fun aside. This wasn't planned or anything, but if this was made today, who do you think would be voicing? Well, I'll give each of you a character. Paul, who do you think would be voicing TikTok? Like of a celebrity, like they would probably cast a celebrity. What celebrity do you think they would
The
cast?
Rock.
The Rock. Okay.
Can I have Jack?
I was gonna give James Jack, but sure, you can have Jack.
Let me
since
have
you
Jack
asked.
because I want Jack Black to voice him. But Jack Black is one of those rare Hollywood celebrities that actually tries to do other voices, and he's proven himself quite capable. Even if he used his regular voice but accentuated it, I still feel like it would be good, as the Kung Fu Panda movies has kind of shown.
Okay, fair.
They're both Jack. He can do
Okay.
it.
Skadoosh.
James, who would you have voice Gnome, the king? No, the Gnome King.
Oh, the Gnome King. Wow, that's a tough one. I mean, well, you asked who would Hollywood have it to? That's like what?
Yeah, who would Hollywood have it?
Oh, and it's probably going to be Chris Pratt. I mean, right?
Why?
He's Mario, or he's just like, why not?
He's
Right? That's
everything.
who they would have. Do
Time for him to do a villain. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
My Ruby specials. They are the special Ruby special. Ruby slippers. Wow, Francisco, roll over your
but-
own joke.
But I'd want James Spader. Just
Oh, that'd be interesting.
Just put it out there.
I could totally see that. Yes. Awesome. So yeah, I really enjoyed the voice acting. But now it's time to get to the things we loved most about Return to Oz. And I'm going to start with Ashley because given just our side conversations, I'm very curious what your favorite thing about this film is.
Okay, well, my favorite thing about this entire movie was actually the creatures themselves.
Oh, okay,
the
yeah.
creature design and the puppetry. I was just fascinated with how all of them move and just how realistic some of them were. None of y'all mentioned the chicken Belina.
I was about to.
But I just found the mannerisms, the fact that they used real chickens with a puppet, and it just felt so lifelike. Like when the bird would blink or the bird would talk, and it was just so fascinating to watch. And the puppet was so well made, and it's just an ordinary chicken, but it looks so fascinating. And the gump and how it was so expressive, and how Jack was this. He was played by an actor in a suit, but then there was puppetry in addition to that. And it's just so interesting to see it move, and the man in the TikTok suit and how he had to kind of bounce back and forth. It's just fascinating to see how all of these different things work. And you've got the creature design of the Gnome King and just how he has so much transition in him.
Yeah.
From being a rock face and then gradually becoming more and more human-like to actually having the actor that portrayed him slowly transition, and it started with the eyes, and then his face became more expressive.
Yes.
And then as all of those characters were being added to his ornament collection, he was getting ever so much more closer to humanity, and it was kind of eerie.
Yes,
just
absolutely.
how well done that makeup and effect was.
Yeah, the makeup when he was that close to
Yeah,
being human, I'm like, wow, you are like a rock man.
Yeah, it was jarring, and just the creature effects, and just it was so incredibly well done. It really made you feel like they were just lifelike and just jumping off the screen at you. It was fantastic.
He was close enough to human that he could start wearing women's shoes too.
Yeah, absolutely. He was fascinated with those ruby slippers. He even showed like, look at my slippers.
Yes, exactly. You can't have them.
You can.
For you know what, that's pretty much the same. My classic maker
Gnome
to a
King is your
T.
classic maker?
Yes, him wearing ruby slippers is my classic maker. No,
I thought so.
the believability of these puppets. I feel like these all the puppeted creatures in the rock, the Gnome King and whatnot, their believability was, I think, came from they were so utterly, and I'm gonna trip over this word, anthropomorphic.
Anthropomorphic.
Yeah, they were anthropomorphized so well. I could believe that the Gump was, I could believe a boy could fly. No, I could believe the Gump was a real thing. That Jack was really walking around. I think they were going to have Jack actually have an articulation to his mouth. But it was just going to be way too costly.
So glad he didn't.
Well,
That would have scared me. He had expressions.
Yes, they did have different expressions.
And that was fine. But the articulating face probably would have scared the children even more than this movie already did.
I would have loved to have seen how they could have pulled that off. But regardless, just that's my classic maker too. Just how these characters, TikTok, etc., are so lifelike. So that's my classic maker.
Stole mine because we watched it together.
You stole mine.
No, you stole mine. Get out of my head.
No. James, what was most fixated in your head from this film that you loved it the most?
Well, speaking to Ashley's comment earlier about scaring little children, when the headless Mombi appeared.
Oh, gosh.
And all the heads start screaming.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking to myself, this is an entry-level horror movie for kids.
Yep, pretty much.
This is like Goosebumps. This is like, and probably why I liked it so much when I was 12 back in 1985, right? And she even says at the beginning, I think it's Ozma says it's almost Halloween. Like this is almost a movie. She brings in Little Pumpkin, and I would never have remembered that. And it's like this is a Halloween movie. That's strange. It kind of really is, from its strangeness to its weirdness. It's probably one you would trot out for the kids at Halloween time. And like, okay, if you're going to start you on scary movies, there you go. Like this is the way to go. And so fast forward to the Gnome King at the end too. It's almost something like Chernabog in Fantasia. It's just like
yes.
And all the little minions dancing around. And then when they disappear, it's like they disappear by like swallowing their own hands and folding in on each other. And it's just all of that spooky stuff. It's not. I guess you got to pick the right age.
Yes.
I was 12. I thought it was just appropriately dark, and I do think it whet my appetite for all my love of Tim Burton. Tim Burton made Pee Wee Herman the same year.
Yeah.
So he's
really big. He's Big Adventure.
Pee-wee's Big Adventure. He hasn't gone sort of full Tim Burton yet.
Yeah.
And I think he actually mentions like Jack Pumpkinhead is a direct inspiration for Skellington. I mean,
nice.
That's why he kind of looks like that at the beginning of Nightmare Before Christmas, and then it burns away, and there he is. That's like a little homage to both this movie and the books. So
nice.
I was wondering, is that why you're wearing the black suit,
the pinstripe,
pinstripes?
I mean, I wear it sometimes to preach on Sundays too, but
for special occasions like the Retro Rewind podcast, we appreciate
it. Yes.
Awesome. Okay, that totally makes sense, and I would agree with you. That is entry level horror in that way. James, Paul, I would guess that's not your classic maker. So why don't you give us what your favorite thing about this film was?
The favorite thing for me about this movie is TikTok. His execution of that character, that character alone, it's amazing just what they were able to pull off with him. So for me, he makes this movie.
Wow.
I mean, this movie could stand on its own without him, but just that character alone and how they brought him to life on the screen is just amazing. It's just
nice. And definitely my favorite too.
I loved his tactician's brain too, when he like has Dorothy come in to see what he turns into, even though that amounts to nothing. But I love that sort of forward thought that he had as well.
Good thinking. So,
exactly. Go ahead.
My only regret in reading up on who everybody was is I really wish at some point in the movie he had to say it's a trap.
That would have been
because he's Admiral Akbar.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Oh, the voices. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That's right. Awesome. Well, guys, I think it's lots to like about this, but now I think we need to get to the things Oh, wait a second. Hold on. Sorry, I'm looking at my notes. There's one more thing I like, guys. I'm sorry. This seems to happen every time. But yeah, one more thing I liked, and that would be the Untold Podcast. The Untold Podcast is a speculative fiction podcast utilizing the genres of sci-fi, fantasy, and horror, among others, in order to engage the culture's imagination from a Christian worldview. Every month, Nathan James Norman produces and narrates a new story presented in a unique and dynamic way. Check out the Untold Podcast at www.untoldpodcast.com to listen and leave them a review on Apple Podcasts. Yeah. Got something to say about that, Paul? Yeah, good.
What does that have to do with Return to Oz?
Return to Oz is based on a couple stories, books even, and Untold Podcast is stories that were. Well, they are actually ostensibly told on the podcast too. So is that close?
No.
Okay.
But the stories were told in so many different ways. They weren't just books. L. Frank Baum actually turned most of his works into stage productions too.
Yeah, and I'm sure he would have turned them into podcasts if he was still alive today.
Yeah, but these books were written over 100 years ago, but they were told in so many different ways. I'm sure if he had been alive when so much of these things had come out, I don't know, he might have been fascinated with how his stories were told.
Indeed. But you know what? Let me fascinate you guys with some trivia. How about that, Paul? Would that be better?
That would be much better. Thank you.
All right. Did you all realize that gymnast Michael Sudin, probably getting his name wrong, stood upside down with legs bent and backwards inside TikTok's body to move the legs?
Yeah.
I'm
he
like,
also walked back. Yeah, you said walk backwards, right?
Yeah. Why wouldn't you just like bow your legs out? I don't understand why you have to. No, he's like handstanding it the whole way. He's upside down, Paul.
Yeah.
He's
I'm still
walking.
trying to picture that. I was looking at. I read that and was trying to watch TikTok in those scenes, and it's like, how do I see a
some
human?
footage online behind the scenes. That's pretty fascinating. Yeah.
Wow.
Yes.
gotta
So
check
I
that
just
out.
don't
He's a
understand.
contortionist.
Okay.
So.
But I don't get why you wouldn't just like squat down really low.
Yeah,
Because that
No,
seems
you
much
can't-
easier.
And with that, there wasn't room for that.
Yeah, not with how TikTok is shaped.
Yeah.
Get a smaller guy
Unless you
to
had
do
someone
it.
who was incredibly like bow-legged and like they had like really big wide hip distance and
No.
they'd be able to.
You know who they should have hired? This guy. I could have totally done it.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes. Totally done.
How old were
I believe
you
it.
in 1984?
He was.
That's
You
beside
were
the point.
4. You would have no.
Yeah, I totally could have fit in there.
No.
Fit
Easy
in one of his
peasy.
legs.
All right. Well, that leads me to ask you guys. Or actually, I'm going to do this real quick. Hold on. Well, I'm not going to worry about it this time. Edna mode. Yes. Edna mode, me, Paul, whatever.
Edna mode.
So my question to you guys is, what's the most acrobatic feat that you can achieve? So I'm going to start with Paul.
Oh, that I can't achieve now?
Sure, yes.
No, I'm not going to answer that because I don't know because I'm not as young and spry as I used to
Fine,
be.
the
In
one that you've
college,
done in your life, sure.
I used to be able to take a Coke can and fit like the bottom in my mouth. Like I was able to wedge open my jaw that far.
Wow, okay. Well, you can't do that
I
anymore?
can't do that. No,
okay.
Yeah.
All right. How about you, James?
Does competitive eating count? It's not really acrobatic.
It is for the
So-
stomach.
I mean, I suppose, but no, that I wouldn't count that. But if that's all you got, that's all you got.
See, no, that acrobatic feat was hard for me. I was like, I didn't even do cartwheels as a kid. The most I can think of is like acrobats. It's jumping, leaping, vaulting. I have twice in my life fallen 40 feet. Once from a cliff at the beach, another time out from it actually with a tree. That's a long story. And sustained no injury. So I kind of feel like
What?
if there's, so I'm not a long jumper. I'm a long faller.
Okay.
That's
And
what I'm going.
survivor.
That's what I'm going with. Yeah.
Retro Rewind podcast approved. I like it.
Yikes.
Ashley, how about you?
Well, outside of tripping over my own feet and falling face first on pavement and busted my knee over a year ago, I grew up as a dancer. I never took gymnastics, was always jealous of anyone who did. But probably the thing that I can still do to this day is actually stretch out my whole leg and hold it from the bottom of my foot and stretch it.
Oh, wow.
I'll have to show you later. I can't do it from sitting and then standing and doing it, and I have to stretch a little bit
course,
because
yeah.
my 36-year-old knees don't like that so much anymore. But when I was a teenager, I could do it with both of my legs. I can only do it with my right one now because my knee is so locked up on my left because that was the one I fell on.
How would you do them together.
You can't. You can alternate.
Oh.
You do a heel stretch on one side and then you can alternate the other.
I just float
And
them
I
around.
used to be able to
Da
do
Vinci Man. I think it's possible.
yeah, not humanly possible with this person. And I used to be able to do a full split way back when. I've done some gymnastics moves. I used to be able to do like a full bridge and actually like kick myself over. Can't do that anymore. I'm sure if I really tried, I could probably do a bridge, but then I'd probably throw out my back. And then you'd have to take care of me. So I don't think you would like
Let's
that.
not try that.
So
anytime soon.
I can demonstrate my skills at another time.
Okay. And then here in chat, Dale says, probably jump off the roof of my dad's garage. Okay, that's a feat for sure.
Been there.
Oh, awesome.
Never
Wow.
tried that. Would have been scared.
Great trivia, Francisco.
Thank you, Paul.
Now that we've all had some trivial fun, let's find out what memories you, our awesome rewinders, had about Return to Oz. Return to Oz, not Oz.
To Oz. I know it. So from locals, D. Tungsten starts by saying, I remember quite a bit. I've seen it multiple times. While it was something of a disappointment to me, I'd probably still rate it 4 out of 5 stars, or a classic. Some lines I recall, so that you don't fall out. Oh no, the Wheelers. Tie my feet together. Pyog. I forget what that. I know she says it weird.
Piog.
Piog.
It's
Piog. The disappointment comes from the fact that combined 2 to 3 books instead of just doing book 2, and some aspects of it I didn't care for. It's still a fun story and well told in its own way, though. And
nothing. And what? My turn?
And your turn, Paul.
Okay. D. Tungsten's wife says she liked it until she read the books and had a similar disappointment as D. Tungsten that it was 3 books smashed into one story.
Nah, that's fair. And then from Facebook, Matthew Cosby says, I remember it being very dark and creepy.
David Gardner says, definitely macabre. I remember the couple minutes specials trying to show people training to be wheelers.
Oh, okay. And then Wardale White says, I just remember thinking that I'd rather just return to Oz of 1939, that is. Well, thank you all for sharing your memories. And like Dale, maybe we don't want to return to discussing this movie, but alas, there is no time like the present to spin up our
Worst clothes.
So let's get into our worst things about Return to Oz, and I'm going to kick us off by going back to that rock hole, the rock thing. Something was now okay. The animation wasn't bad, but there's something really uncanny about it for me. It's almost like I don't know which of you all have seen the Hobbit movies and like high frame rate. It was sort of like that effect for me. It seemed like they animated it at like a full 30 frames per second or something instead of like the standard like 24 or 12. It just seemed like too odd. I that's the only way I have to describe it. It's probably not that.
I saw the Hobbit movies, and I have my TV cranked up to 60 frames a second while watching this, and it looked fine to me. But that's me.
Good for you, Paul. I'm just saying it looked off for some reason. I know it's stop motion. At least I assume it's stop motion. That's how it looked.
Right, it is.
Okay.
It's stop motion animation.
Maybe something about it was just too smooth almost, and I don't know why that affected me, but it bothered me in some way.
I do see what you're saying. When I usually see talking rocks in real life, it doesn't quite look the same.
Yeah, okay. See, exactly what I'm saying. Yes. Oh my gosh. Let's go to James next. Tell me about what the talking rocks told you that wasn't good about this film.
Well, one thing that I thought didn't rock was was actually the score.
Oh, okay.
Honestly, the score just seemed I felt like it was average and serviceable to the film, but in a few places it kind of was a detriment. I think it's when they're going to the lunch pail, the lunch pail tree, and there was this like weird like da, 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 like this weird, quirky music,
ragtime,
And I liked when she fell in the river. There was this organ music, but it never appears again. And it felt very like there was nothing that tied the score together.
It was just there almost.
Yeah.
It was just, I totally agree.
And in the 80s,
would be the word that I would use. It was disconnected from the scenes that it played in. It didn't have any unity across the entire score.
Yeah.
It was completely forgettable, which is why I had nothing to really say about it.
Well, and I felt like if they had picked any one of those themes and kind of fleshed them out and run with them.
Yeah.
Because especially in the 80s. I mean, we all know in the 80s and actually 90s, pretty much as long as John Williams was ruling, like
He still is.
a score kind of was almost the unsung actor of, well, certainly it made the Star Wars trilogy, right? It's a more powerful actor than Mark Hamill. So like this just did not have, this contributed nothing. So I like that. Yeah. Dislike.
Yeah, absolutely. I can totally back that, approve it. Paul,
I can so much. That was also my.
Oh, really? Okay.
I said it was fine, but I mean, come on. I mean, yes, TikTok had his own theme, but even Kesha came up with a better theme. I mean, and then you have Oz. Like they have a theme for Oz. Like one of the best things about The Wizard of Oz from 1939 is its music, and I'm not.
Yeah, I can hum that. That's true. Yeah.
But you better bring some of the music with the fantasy. Especially when you have the power of Disney behind it, and it's.
I feel like there's so many other people that could have done this, and maybe it was just a lacking in David Worcestershire sauce. What's his name?
David Shire.
No, Walter Murch. That's what I meant. The director of this, this was his only directed movie. He's never done another movie since then.
Well, he was editor for.
I know he's sound editor for a long time. He's won Academy Awards for that.
And he was the editor
Apocalypse
of
Now.
Apocalypse Now.
Yes,
so he knows his dark music.
Yeah.
No. I think he knows how to mix well.
Yeah, he's a sound mixer and a sound editor. He's not.
He knows
so much
what should be there. It's like he decided, let's go with the temp track.
Let's work in progress. Let's just go with it. We don't have any more money to spend.
We're already at $25 million. Let's see what happens.
We blew it all on the costumes.
Well, there was a lot of budget cut slashing fears. They're reading the behind the scenes stuff, so maybe they did just were not able to really get the score that he wanted, and that's a bummer because this is one of those where I would love to see somebody come in and rescore it, like when they brought back the Jerry Goldsmith score for Legend, also 1985.
Oh yeah.
Right? Instead of there's different scores, and they rescored Dracula, like the old 1930s
really?
Dracula. They went
that.
and redid that. There's a cool version you can get that actually has an updated score. Like this kind of does. Well, I think this deserves it. I think it would vastly improve it.
Oh, totally. I'd be behind seeing a version with an updated score. Maybe if we rate this classic, that is. Ashley, what's something that was definitely not classic for you about this film?
I know I had said this earlier, and we talked about it being faithful to the books, the source material that it took from. I said the things that they did right, they did incredibly right. The things that they did wrong, they just did it wrong. I hated how they just cherry picked certain elements and tried to make amalgamations of things. Like the character of Mombi. She's an old witch, and she has everything to do with Ozma and Jack Pumpkinhead, and has next to nothing to do with Dorothy. Next to nothing to do with Dorothy. Doesn't want her head, because she's an old haggy witch. She does have the powder of life. They take two characters and put them into one, and they go, well, Mombi sounds more menacing than Princess What's-Her-Name, who was just...
Is her name actually Princess What's-Her-Name?
No.
Oh, okay.
I can't tell you... I can't remember her name. It's like Landwehr or something like that. It's got an IE. It's very strange. And she's a distant relative of this distant kingdom. And honestly, how Dorothy gets to Oz in this is stolen directly from the book. But she's not actually in Oz in the book. She's in this land across the sea in Ev. And they just cherry picked and they just changed locations and combined characters. And Ozma didn't make Jack Pumpkinhead. The boy version of Ozma did. So there were things that just messed with my head. And I mean, maybe if you have no connection to the books, you're like, this is really good. People say that they're close and true to L. Frank Baum's world. And yes, there were certain elements that were great. But as someone who's read the books more than one way through, I'm like, that's wrong. That's wrong. That's wrong. That's wrong. That's wrong. And it frustrated me so much.
Yeah.
But you're dealing with kids like me, Ashley, that don't read. We just want to see things.
No, but it flustered me so much. It's not my tragic maker, but goodness gracious, it flustered me. And I think that's one of the main reasons why I hated it like so much like the first and second time I saw it. And it still hasn't changed 20 years later.
Yeah, I get that.
I wonder, I don't know where I was at, Ashley, in reading the books. I may have only read the first couple by that point. And so maybe that's it. Like I think then reading the books after, you sort of saw all these different elements come together.
Yeah.
Maybe I wasn't as... Because I remember, like, I was probably reading them right around the same time. I knew enough to recognize the characters and illustrations kind of from some of the first couple. But yeah, it's probably... I probably hadn't hit the later books with like Ozma of Oz and those. So that may have actually changed the experience, kind of.
Yeah, and it really does, because the things that they did well, they did incredibly well. And it's not to say that the Gnome King was any less menacing, and there were actually things that they did that made him more interesting than he is in the books. Yeah. But goodness gracious, the cherry picking and just combining elements and just switching things up to make it more convenient. Yeah. None of the stuff that happens in the first half even happens in the Land of Oz. And the Gnome King, he always was trying to take over Oz, but he was never successful. He was kind of like this failed foil, and he was a running joke in the books. So the fact that they were able to make something more of him, that's great. But, yeah, all the things that they just... Ooh, frustrating.
Well, Paul, you've read the books. Maybe you can answer this question from Dale. How come it takes a storm to get Dorothy back to Oz? How come the Gnome King couldn't just grab her or something?
I honestly haven't read the books in over 10 plus years. So.
Oh, okay.
I read them about 10 years ago. And she doesn't escape from a sanitarium in a chicken coop.
No.
She falls overboard. She's actually on a cruise ship with her Uncle Henry, falls overboard, and then... And she shows up in the land of Ev. And how the chicken gets there, I'm like, there was no chicken.
No,
no, Bellina's in the book, but my goodness, she was not on a cruise ship as far as I remember.
Everyone's into multiverses these days. Can we get a Narnia Oz multiverse like crossover? I think that'd be kind of cool.
Let's not do that. Let's not say we did. You can write that fan fiction. I hear fanfiction.net still exists. You can go write that, and then you can read the fan fiction that I wrote when I was 14.
Oh, okay. So it'll be that, and then you can read Francisco's fabulous fan fiction.
Exactly, it's fabulous.
Oh. Okay, let's go back to James. How about that? What's something else you didn't like about Return to Oz?
Well, this is where I'm still confused on where I was at with reading, because one of my dislikes watching this time, I remember Jack Pumpkinhead being cool. And really liking him. But I've also read the books, about years ago, and rewatching it this time, I kind of feel like I know he inspired Tim Burton and Jack Skellington and all that, but in Return to Oz, he looks interesting, but I really didn't find him that interesting.
No, his character isn't at all interesting. Yeah, because he is like a boy, I guess. Yeah,
he's like a little kid.
He doesn't really have much to do or contribute.
Right.
Yeah,
there's just not a lot. Like I thought it was cool to learn Brian Henson did him. I had no idea when I was watching as a kid any of that stuff, but he just kind of comes across as kind of whiny. The mom thing, I didn't really. I was like, I guess it's supposed to be cute. It just sort of Jack fell flat for me this time, and so it's kind of not what I remembered.
That's disappointing.
Yeah. He doesn't really have a hero moment. I mean, TikTok certainly does. I think Gump does.
They have to save him. Think of when his head flies off.
Yeah.
And he's falling apart.
He's holding Bellina.
Yeah. Okay, great. He's a hiding spot. That's not a hero moment.
No. Just because the chicken is like, I need to hide from these gnomes. Where's the big open spot? Oh, look, there's a pumpkin that I can hide in.
Right. Yeah. And that's how they defeat the Gnome King.
Like I said, but that doesn't make him an interesting character just because he does that.
He's an assist to the layup. Okay, fine.
He's more like a second string player, Paul. He's just the one sitting on the bench keeping it warm.
Yes, exactly.
You only call him in when you have a guaranteed win. It's like, okay, we're like 20 points ahead. There's no way we could win this game.
Horse.
He's like Hawkeye in the Avengers.
Pretty much. He's like, they're already winning. He just let him just like throw some arrows around and see what happens next. It's not.
Sorry, Jeremy Renner.
Oh my gosh. Get better, Jeremy Renner.
Yeah.
That's an order.
Anyway, Wow. Yeah, I'd agree with you though about Jack Pumpkinhead. He wasn't as interesting to me this time. Paul, what was something that wasn't very interesting to you on this watch?
I said some of the effects hold up and some don't. So the ones that don't, specifically to me, are the
rocks,
birds in
the rock
green screen.
animations.
No, like
No.
unlike Ashley, I have to disagree with her that during the flying scene, I thought this is rudimentary. It feels like rewatching it. When she's when Dorothy's
which part
looking
of the
across
flying?
the desert,
Oh, okay.
when she first lands in Oz, it's like she's almost a Microsoft Paint cutout. looking
That's the
around.
part. That's the part that where the green screen looked off.
Yeah,
Yes,
so
that
some
was
of
it.
those
Okay.
don't really hold up to today's standard.
We watched it at night before bed, so that was towards the end. So I'm just kind of like, so maybe
Was
maybe
that
my
the end?
type.
I thought that was in the beginning when she's looking across the
It's at
desert.
the beginning.
It is
Yeah,
kind of
when she
at the
first
beginning, and
lands.
then like when they're flying later
The
on.
flying is
Flying
later in the
on,
movie.
Yeah.
And it's dark.
The falling,
can't tell.
especially. Kind of, but they're like falling through the clouds.
Yes, that doesn't look very real.
No,
Yeah, yeah.
no.
Yeah, she falls twice. Like she
Yep.
falls through the clouds, and then she's falling in the cave, and yeah.
She wouldn't survive that fall. No way, no how.
No way, no how. Thank goodness for that like mountain and a couch and all that stuff.
Exactly.
Contrivance.
But what was most contrived for you, Ashley, before we get to our attraction makers?
There's just so many things in this movie that just like don't make sense.
Like mom be snoring?
No,
How is that?
No, that was definitely an unanswered question. Like, you're headless. How in the world can you snore?
It's like the same way people who smoke who have that hole in their throat.
Yeah.
I guess. And then it's like, okay, well, Ozma, you're trapped in glass. You're cursed and you're trapped behind glass. How in the world are you showing up in the real world and giving Dorothy a pumpkin? How in the world are you there? Where in the world did the chicken come from? She wasn't floating in a coop with Dorothy. Where did she come from? Did she just decide to show up in Oz? Does she have this portal to another world that we just don't know about?
She went through the wardrobe.
She found the key. Like she found the key, and then Dorothy picked it up because apparently the Scarecrow sent it. And it's just like, is Oz real? Is Oz not? Like you're trying so hard to kind of like say that there's this go-between.
Yeah.
And the movie is trying to sell so far that it's a delusion of Dorothy that she has to go into a sanitarium and get electroshock therapy.
Yeah, I was asking.
Back and forth and back and forth and
I was asking Ashley these because
the books make it that Oz is real.
Okay.
Oz is real.
So yeah, I was asking Ashley this. That is this essentially is Oz just a dream? Like it's
No.
in the person's head, and
No, it's
that's
real.
why
In the book
people
series-
in the movies in the Oz are the same people in the real life, and is it trying
It's
to
a
bridge that gap?
continuation of the
Yeah.
movie
Yeah, it's
from
just
before.
the situation of
I
the
know.
movie. In the books, Oz is as real as you and I.
Mm-hmm.
And what's interesting is like later in the book series, like L. Frank Baum actually like makes Oz like no one can come to it because like all the people from the outside cause so much trouble. So in this one book, it's later on, I can't remember what number it is, but it's the Emerald City of Oz is the title of the book.
Mm-hmm.
Oz basically closes its borders and no one can get there anymore. And Dorothy actually moves from the real world and actually moves permanently to Oz.
Oh, wow.
So it is this real breathing place full of this magic.
Uh-huh.
She's
And
an undocumented worker there.
yes, she's undocumented, but she actually becomes a princess of Oz later on. But yeah, all the things that are like that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Ozma's trapped. How is what? Where's the chicken coming from? Where is all this? Why does
all
everyone
in
have a
Dorothy's
doppelganger?
imagination.
What is all this stuff?
I think that's what Ashley was saying though, Paul, is that it's not in her imagination. It's supposed to be all real.
Well, you're not supposed to compare it to the book. That's what's frustrating you.
Okay.
There's just-
That's it. Just
even
don't
if
do
I
that.
don't, even if I don't compare it to the book, the movie basically tells you, like you learn, okay, Ozma's trapped in the glass. How in the world is she in normal human form in the beginning? And you never know her name. You just go, she's this blonde apparition. She's this random blonde stranger who comes. She gives Dorothy a pumpkin. She helps untie her from the setup and helps her escape. And then you're left to believe, well, did she drown? Did she die? Because she didn't make it to the chicken coop. That Dorothy just climbed in. Like, what in the world happened? Make
is
it
the
make
chicken.
sense. She no chicken.
Well, see, I guess I took it maybe as a younger person that she'd been trapped in the mirror, and so she's like trapped on the other side, but she's able to manifest in the real world, but
Yeah,
she
it's a
can't.
different
She
world.
can't manifest back into a pod.
Yeah,
I
like
mean,
that, Alice.
that was my 12-year-old brain. That was my 12-year-old brain. I don't know. That was filling
Yeah.
in
I
the
like
gaps.
that explanation because the movie doesn't give us any.
Yeah,
You're
exactly.
left to your own devices, and I mean, to each their own. But if something doesn't make sense, I just shout it from the heavens, make it make sense.
Here's the thing. I think that would, your explanation, James, would be so much more I like that explanation, but I think you could have made that the perfect explanation. All you do is when we're seeing Ozma, like, because we see her in reflections sometimes, right? In Oz, or is it?
You're supposed to think that's her.
Like
that
distorted,
Yeah,
distorted versions.
If
of her.
you saw like the real world also back there, like distorted, like the farms or something, I think that would
make sense out of fantastical things. It's not supposed to work that way.
Yeah, why would I do that? Heaven forbid I do anything like that, Paul.
Just leave us all to our own devices, because you would think that the director who wrote the screenplay would want to give us details, because they gave us details, so many unwanted details and so many different things. More on that later.
Yeah, so I guess I was thinking. I felt like they were going for more of the Doctor Who method, where we'll just explain it by saying it's wibbly wobbly, timey wimey.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I guess so. But something that I guess you could explain with wibbly wobbly, timey wimey, but it bothered me the most, that made my tragic maker, is okay, they're flying over the desert.
This is your tragic maker?
This is my tragic maker. We're two tragic makers now, because the yeah, just had some scrambled eggs. My tragic maker is, how does flying over the desert, and this is, I think, this is when, I forget exactly when this is happening, but I know Dorothy calls it out. She says she knows that if you touch the sand, or maybe it's at the beginning, you touch the sand, it will turn you into sand.
Yes.
How does she know that? Because in the original, there's no land of sand, and in this, nothing tells her, oh, you're going to turn into sand if you touch it. Where is she getting this knowledge from? How does she know this thing?
There were so many things that was like that, Francisco, that she just had this knowledge. Just like, you didn't learn that until like 3 books later. What you talking about, Dorothy? What you talking about? Yeah. Yeah, like apparently, like, what's his name? Walter Murdoch? Is that the name of the director?
Walter Merrick, I think.
Whatever, Walter W. The Academy Award-winning sound designer and editor. Did you read all the Oz books? Is this why you were like, well, she'll know eventually, so let's skip the boring parts and just make her know now?
Yeah.
But yeah, how would she have known? I don't think she would have known. I mean, anyone who
Here's what you do. Francisco's Fabulous Fan Fiction.
Well, Star Fox says the flying monkeys told her.
Oh my gosh, Star Fox. What you do is you have Belina somehow on the thing. If Belina's somehow in the it looks like a crib. What is it supposed to be?
It's a chicken coop.
Chicken coop. If she is in the chicken coop, how about Toto's in the chicken coop? Toto goes off, walks on the sand, Toto dies. There, you know it's the sand. You can't touch the sand.
How dare you?
Wow.
You just killed Toto.
We don't need Toto. Obviously, he's only at the beginning of this.
He's the one that finds her at the end.
Yes.
She would have drowned in the river.
Yep.
It's so sad when she leaves.
It's such a shame she didn't have a van down by the river.
Oh
Could have been her
my
home.
gosh. She isn't played by Chris Farley.
Maybe that would have been better.
Oh my word, Ashley. Okay, so that is my tragic maker, that she knows things that it doesn't make sense for her to know. James, let's go with you. What's your least favorite thing, your tragic maker for Return to Oz?
You know, something that honestly, for me, it was the Wheelers.
Oh, what? I actually like the Wheelers, but okay, what about the Wheelers did you like?
I love them in concept.
Okay.
I love them in concept. I love them in the books. I love them in other illustrations and things that I've seen. And there's that first moment where they come around the corner and the one guy, he's got the mask down, and it's a legitimately freaky moment.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was just like, what? This is where, to Ashley's point, just some poor direction choices, because it's like they needed longer stretches. Like we're the Cirque du Soleil guys who could really move.
Yeah.
It's like they're on these cool wheels, and we never. They give them like 5 feet at a time to move on, and
yes,
you don't. Considering they had contortionists inside TikTok, they had so much other stuff going on. I was like, where is the cool action where we give them some room to really do some wheeling?
Oh, yeah,
they're in their own movie later.
So it
Wasted
just felt-
opportunity.
yeah, I was like, what? How did you have such a cool design? And with all the other creativity that they had, whether it was budget, whatever, it is like it. And the one guy they catch, I just thought he was weird, foppish, and whiny. I just like, like it's just like, oh, that. So
like,
it didn't
almost like a Joker wannabe, like laughing all the time and stuff. But
Yeah.
So,
And
so by the time TikTok is just knocking them all down, I was like, thank you, because they just it just feels like you wasted an opportunity. So just knock them out.
considering they got their costumes from like a party city because like from last Halloween with like the pink hairsprays, like they just raided a party city and just bought last year's Halloween costumes.
I almost wish they kept their heads down and it was just them. You hear like this motionless mask creepily talking at you. I thought that would have been way more creepy to have just had that. But
For sure.
And then maybe finally when TikTok gets one, then you see that it's just a normal person, and that sort of dispels the fear. But the fear stays until that point. But again, I can only rewrite so much of this movie.
I will say, in cinema history, the Wheelers are one of the creepiest characters ever created for me.
Oh, okay, that's fair.
They're pretty creepy.
Paul, what was so creepy about this film that you hated it? I'll put it that way, I guess.
Yes, you hit my tragic maker. Is that unfortunately how I say this is probably going to go directly against James's classic maker. Is that it's a creepy movie for kids, but honestly, I think this movie suffers the most because it is a very well done, very creepy movie for kids.
Okay.
You have people who never read the books, and most people just saw the movie. They're expecting a sequel in that tone, and this does not deliver at all in any way, shape, or form of a continuation of that movie. Those people that grew up reading the books, it's very fantastical, and this movie does not meet their expectations either. So this movie, as how it was made, the director, the direction it was chose, it's a very creepy kids movie, and I think that's what makes this movie suffer the most. Now, if you're one of those, unfortunately, you're one of the few people, if you do like creepy kids movies, like, hey, this movie's for you. But as far as the mass general audience, it's not really gonna meet them where they are or their expectations. And I think this it could have been better received if it was a different tone.
Yeah, I could totally see that. Absolutely. And that leaves Ashley. What is the thing you hated most about Return to Oz?
Okay, well, I could say that it is disturbing and it's creepy and it is a creepy kids movie, and like it doesn't know where it is. But the thing that I hated the most was just how much foreshadowing was in this movie, in the real world, to set up an equivalent character in the Land of Oz.
Oh, I loved
between
it. I
the
couldn't find
doctor
Gump, though.
and the nurse and the weird TikTok static electroshock machine guy that looks like TikTok. And I'm like, this is the random pumpkin that she gets on Halloween. I did not care for that.
And this all leads to the whole, like, is it a dream, is it not? But
Exactly.
It's supposed to be. That's on purpose.
And I do not like that because it did. That was one of the few things that it shared with the original Wizard of Oz, is that movie did it. The books don't do it.
Right.
And the movie doesn't know what it wants to be because it says, oh, you're in this reality, Oz is a delusion, but then somehow the Scarecrow sends her this key on a shooting star, and then there's all these equivalent people, but then there's real versions of them in Oz and real versions of them in the real world. So does everybody have like a doppelganger? Is it one of these like multiverses between the real world and Oz, and it's like a parallel universe? And
now you're onto something.
It doesn't know what it wants to do, and it like tries to give you glimpses.
You just said what it wants to do.
I don't like it though. It is so frustrating, and it just makes me so mad because it's like, stay in your lane, movie. Stay in your lane. Are you gonna be true to the source material of L. Frank Baum? Or are you gonna try to make it into something more contemporary? Because you're trying to do all these different things at once, and you don't know what you want to do. You have this path of doing it, and it just frustrates me.
A little bit of everything, and then it fails at everything.
Fails miserably.
Guys, it does know what it wants to do. It wants to be a horror movie for kids. It succeeds wildly.
That's the only thing that it succeeds at, Francisco, because it is creepy. The first time I saw this movie, we rented it, and I was probably about 7 or 8. I didn't read the books until I was about 10. So the first time I saw it, I was just like, what in the Hades? The Wheelers gave me nightmares. Mombi Headless scared the bejesus out of me. The Gnome King gave me nightmares too, because all of them were super creepy. And I'm like, this isn't Dorothy. Where's Toto? Where's all these people? I don't know who all these people are.
Toto turned to sand, sorry.
Yeah, Toto turned to sand. But yeah, it tries to do so many different things that the only thing it ends up doing is failing miserably.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what it does, it alienates those who...
I could see.
I feel like you're alienating all the people that you're trying to introduce this to. The Wizard of Oz for the 1980s generation, and trying to make it more fantastical. And it's like, well, we want to distance ourselves away from the 1939 musical by kind of being like this darkish kind of comedy. And it didn't do a great job of all the things that it tried to do.
That's fair.
I was about to say Siskel and Ebert both gave it, thumbs down and listed it as one of the worst movies of the year. But
I'm not surprised by that.
Honestly, I think this movie came out about 10 years too early. At least, because before the culture really started to get into the dark stuff, like the Dark Knight and everything. I think it would do really well with those audiences rather than when it came out in the mid 80s.
Yeah,
that's
like
fair.
Late 90s, early 2000s. It
I
probably
wouldn't say
would.
even then. I think
Not even then. Like you think in the last
90s,
early
I think
90s
would work because
like
Tim Burton's Batman is
post
dark
Edward
and...
Scissorhands.
Yes,
post
exactly.
Beetlejuice.
Post. Well, and what you were saying about all these things that go against being thrown against the wall, I think that's an accusation that a lot of Tim Burton movies get too. Right. Batman Returns is trying to be a Christmas Carol with and trying to also ape some things from Plan 9 from Outer Space and tell a Batman story, but also Catwoman. And that's one of the complaints, is that it's throwing all these different things against the wall.
Yeah.
I love it, but it's certainly not for everybody.
Exactly.
Right.
The people that love it are going to love this movie, and the people that get frustrated are probably going to feel similarly to those who
alienated almost?
Betrayed.
Yes.
Betrayed.
Yeah, but betrayed.
Wouldn't have got to the dark place if it weren't for the Tim Burtons and the Return to Oz movies, earlier.
Absolutely.
And I get that. And the thing is, like, the source material that it takes from, like, L. Frank Baum didn't believe in like sugarcoating things for children. He wanted them to know what fear was and let them know, like, yes, there are scary things. There is such thing as good and evil. And things that happen in the Oz series across the 14 books, there is evil. There are terrible things that happen.
Yeah, right. And monkeys might fly out of my butt.
Okay, Paul.
Yeah, I will say.
Of course, there's evil. Yeah.
I forget if it's. I want to say it's G.K. Chesterton that said this, but maybe Lewis or some other older author. But that it's you don't want to tell kids that monsters don't exist. You just want to tell them that they can be defeated or some. I'm paraphrasing wildly. It's something like that though, and I think you're right. It is important that you have stakes, you have meaning to either death or pain that can lead to a greater redemption or restoration. Otherwise, if everything's just hunky-dory all the time, then there's nothing to strive for. Or it's just like, well, this is great, but my life sucks, so I have nothing to hope for. So anyway, now let's see if this movie sucks in our minds. Let's get to our final reign for Return to Oz.
Firing solution complete. Rating salvo at the ready. On your mark.
All right, time for the moment of truth. Do we rate Return to Oz a classic? We'd recommend anyone go see this movie, whether or not they've seen it before. A nostalgic, if you've seen it before, yeah, definitely give it a rewatch. Find it on Disney Plus or somewhere else and watch it. But if you've never seen it before, stay away. Watch Wizard of Oz again or something else. Or is it a tragic? We'd recommend no one see this movie. If you've never seen it before, definitely keep it that way. And if you haven't seen it before, don't sully any good memories you have of it with a rewatch. So let's start with James. What is your final reign for Return to Oz?
All right. Well, I predicted nostalgic. But as I was jumping onto Disney Plus to find it and watch it, getting a glimpse at the other family-friendly shows or the kids shows that are on there, and how much junk there is out there. Not exclusive to that channel, but you know.
Yeah.
If the shoe fits.
I expected nostalgic, but I looked at it this way. Well, it's not just what I thought of it, but would I want to show my godkids this movie when they're 10 or 12, et cetera, et cetera? Is this like something like, would I think, and it's like, I'm going with classic. I think it's fun to show. I expected nostalgic. I expected, it's like, yeah, it has flaws, but I think that it's still, like looking back, I still think it's head and shoulders above a lot of family-friendly crud. Okay. I think you got to pick the right age.
Yes, absolutely, yes.
Whereas other movies for me, like 1985, the original Fright Night came out. Boy, that's a tragic. But
okay. But I love Fright Night, James. What are you saying?
Yeah. Just like some 80s movies don't hold
better.
Up. This one I would want to show to the appropriate aged young people kind of growing up and watch a spooky movie.
Especially if they're into like fantastical elements, I would say, for sure.
And I think they would enjoy some of the things like the practical effects. I think the right age is going to enjoy a lot of the stuff we talked about in our likes. So I'm going with classic.
All right.
I know I'm going to be the
very
minority.
Fair.
There you go.
Very fair. Ashley, classic for you?
No. Classic would be a few steps too far.
Okay.
Watching this movie, before watching this movie, I instantaneously said tragic, just based off of everything that I remembered and how it just wanted to do all these things and how I felt like it just failed miserably on every account. I desperately wanted to find something redeeming in this movie that would somehow sway me. And I got so close to rating it nostalgic.
Really?
So close.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, it is tragic, and so it shall remain. If you want something that is better, more true to L. Frank Baum's books, that won't scare the children and give them nightmares and actually has world building and character development and doesn't swap all these things and just cherry pick information, just go read the 14 books. It might take you a couple weeks, but they're connected and they're beautiful and they're fun and they're in public domain, so they won't cost you anything.
Ooh, that's nice. I like the sound of free.
And they are children's books.
Okay, so keep that in mind that they're not.
Keep that in mind, but they still stand up, and I read them 10 years ago, and I want to reread them now because this movie just makes me want to go back to those books because it's just an abomination.
I need a palate cleanser.
I do, and I told you, I told you this when you said that you were recovering this. I'm like, this movie is terrible, and I need to tell everyone why.
Oh my gosh. All right, tragic for Ashley. Before we get to me and Paul's reigns, we go out to our supporters at the $5 level on locals, which is the base level now, and get their, we call them our Rewind Republic. We average all their votes together. They rate classic, nostalgic, or tragic, and collectively, our Rewind Republic rated Return to Oz a nostalgic film. So far we have a classic, tragic, and a nostalgic.
Wow.
Paul, you had predicted tragic. Yeah. Where did it end up for you?
Rewatching this, I found myself enjoying it more than I thought. Just for the fantasy elements, the story of it. So I'm gonna rate it a nostalgic because I do think there are good things in it. I don't think it's for people who are quote unquote too attached to the 1939 movie or the books. If you look at it as its own separate entity, its own universe, its own then I think I like, oh wow, there's some a little bit of good storytelling in here. I like it. So.
Yeah,
so close.
For me, I predicted nostalgic, and I think ultimately it actually comes close to classic for me, but doesn't quite get there. Honestly, I think what we were talking about the music, if they had a better soundtrack, I think this could have easily been a classic for me.
Let's
But
go,
beca-
John Williams.
Yes, John Williams. Let's go.
Get him to rework the score,
Yes.
and you got it. You got an instant classic.
Yes,
There you
because I'm in that group. I'm not attached to the 1939 movie. I have never read the books,
I'll make
so I feel like this is a good film for someone in that class. But a lot of the elements sort of held it back for me to just be at that level. Like I said, if the score had been better, if some of the rock animation I thought was funky was a bit better, if
Maybe, just maybe, if they hadn't screwed up the character of Mombi so much, and they actually
that didn't bother me because I don't have context.
No,
for
I'm
it.
just saying, someone who's a diehard book fan, if they had just changed ever so slightly and were a little more faithful, maybe, just maybe, it wouldn't be a complete tragedy, because the things like I will say, there are things in this movie that are redeeming.
Mm-hmm.
I don't hate it. It's not the worst movie I've ever seen.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, by
Is it a bad movie? Yes. Is it the worst movie? No. The things that it did well, it did well. It is one of the most faithful adaptations of L. Frank Baum. The things that it took from the book and it represented well, it did well. Fairuza Balk is a delight on screen. She was great. The creature work, the puppeteering, the costume design, the set design. There's things that are great, but all the things that I dislike can't sell me on anything
All
less.
right.
It's kind of somewhere in between tragic and nostalgic, just one tick to the left of
It needs
tragic.
to be wound
feel
a
like-
little tighter.
I
and
feel
it'll
like
be
that's
nostalgic.
for me. I'm just one tick away from classic. I wish I could go there, but I'm nostalgic.
Not gonna
Yeah.
happen.
You know-
TikTok's little gears can't help you here.
Exactly. Go ahead,
I
James.
think if Ashley thinks, if you think of it backwards, if you think of it as kids don't read today, they should read more. If we get actually Danny Elfman to redo the score, come on, that's the way it would
Ooh.
have.
I'd be on board.
That'd
with
be
that.
the way to go. Yes.
That would be the way.
Yeah.
Because Tim Burton's Beetlejuice is pretty comparable as far as spooky movie for younger people,
Absolutely, yes.
and far better, better. And I would say get Danny Elfman to redo the score. And I think what it does is it whets the appetite for kids to go read the books and find out they're better. Right? So
honestly,
it's an entry point movie. That's
This
all.
isn't Goosebumps.
I will say,
I read those books too.
I will say, having experienced this movie and hearing Ashley say she's fond of the books. I know Paul read the books and liked them. It does intrigue me to read the books. Yes.
14 of them, husband. We can read them with
Just
the kids.
read the first
true.
3 or 4. You'll be fine.
Oh,
They're good
fine.
until they're pretty good until about book 7 or 8, and then it just kind
Yeah,
of goes.
that's
down.
where I
Oh.
stopped.
after the book TikTok of Oz, it just kind of goes.
Okay. All right. Well, that's
It
fair.
winds
But
down.
according,
It does wind down.
according to the Retro Rewind podcast, with 3 nostalgics, we rate Return to Oz a disputed nostalgic film. If you've seen it before, check it out again. It's worth to revisit. But if you've never seen it before, just go on to something else. I am curious, though, as just a level set, because some people may be fans of the 1939 movie. I'm curious because so you all know where I am with that. Just between, where would you rate it? The 1939 movie,
What would we
Wizard of
predict it would
Oz.
be?
Yeah, what would you? Yeah, exactly. What would you predict it to be? I predict tragic. Paul, what would you predict?
Classic, hands down.
Ashley, what would you predict for it?
Nostalgic.
And James, what would you predict for it?
Oh boy, yeah, probably nostalgic.
Okay. So that's just to help you level set, comparing okay, am I a fan of a 1939 movie? Okay.
It's not true to the books.
Francisco,
and Judy Garland's way too old.
I like
The music's
Francisco's
obnoxious.
take on things. I'm gonna go with his nostalgic reign of Return to Oz. Okay, anyway, enough about
That's
me.
high praise.
And if the people in the chat are like the rad rewinders, they all say classic.
Oh, classic for Return to Oz. Good job, guys.
No.
Anyway, time to get back to our own time. Good old 20XX.
20XX?
Comsat online. Receiving
We have to go save my
incoming
mom. Why are we going to 20XX?
Because we have to go back to 20XX from the times we come, but we're not going back to base, Paul. So we're just going back to 20XX to restage for waiting for the next riddle from Jared. Not Jareth. That's copyright. From Jared. But it feels good to be back, but we wouldn't have been able to travel back to 1985 to begin with. Exactly, James. To begin with, if it weren't for our amazing reflux capacitors, namely Deborah Powers, Geek Devotions, Drew of the Cellcast, Ashley Ruiz. Oh, you're right here. Woohoo! Kennethan, Fabulous Lomax, Rosie Lomax, That's Our Babo, D. Tungsten, Dale, Mr. Lost, Daryl Hafner, Cool Deluxe, in addition to 2 other awesome patrons as well. Thank you all so much for keeping the gigawatts coming. And if you want to help us keep flying, you can support us each month and get bonus content for your generosity. Head over to retrorewindpodcast.com/support to start.
This stream is sponsored by BulgingPowers.com.
While we're thinking people, we want to give a big Oz hug to James Harleman and Ashley Ruiz for supporting us with their thoughts on Return to Oz. So going alphabetically, let's start with Ashley. Where can people find you online? Is there anything cool you got going on?
Nothing to promote at this time unless you want to check back on some random polls that my husband and I have had debating the subject nomenclature of dinner. But you can find me on Instagram, but mostly on Twitter, at Ashley Ruiz 1186.
Do you want to redo that?
Sure.
Oh, hold on.
Yeah, you seem really low all of a sudden in volume.
I don't know why. Let's adjust this ever so slightly.
And just push it in from the back, just
push
to make
it in from the back like this. Is that any better?
I think so. Yeah. Okay.
And it's going up and down.
Oh, there it goes. That's much better.
There we go. It's closer to my mouth now.
Okay.
Okay. Nothing to promote at this time. You can finally. Let's do time number 3.
Edna mode.
Edna mode. Thrice for Ashley. Thrice is nice. Nothing to promote at this time, but you can finally find me most active on Twitter at Ashley Ruiz 1186. Find me where I talk about faith and fandoms and even a popular debate on what a popular dinner term is called. Is it beef loaf or is it meatloaf?
It's beef loaf.
Meatloaf.
All the way.
Meatloaf won, husband.
It doesn't matter. I won the moral victory.
You did not. I was
All
right. You were wrong.
James, thank you so much for coming. Where can people find you online? Is there anything cool you got going on?
Oh, well, actually, what I have going on right now is a 2-month sabbatical, so I'm not going to be online as much. But you can find a lot of my content with co-hosting with the guys at popcorntheology.com. There's certainly a deep well of movies I've been able to review with them, and also my original website, Cinemagog. Try to spell it. I wanted to make it so no one could find me. So if you can figure out how to spell cinemagog.com, you can check out some old written reviews and content and things that I've done on there as well. And you can find my book on Amazon.com. It's called, believe it or not, Cinemagog. So look up James Harleman. It's the only book there. So you can check that out there. And often on Facebook, facebook.com/Harlemanic.
Okay.
Very good.
Very cool.
Awesome. Well, thank you again so much, James and Ashley, my Oz-loving friend Paul, and all you rewinders, new or old, for another fun voyage.
And you're welcome. You can find me, pauljpowers.com, at pauljpowers.com.
Whoa, it's like a website. You can find me on Discord for show announcements or just to say hi. Join us there at retrorewindpodcast.com/Discord.
This podcast is a proud member of Culture Box, a curated collection of podcasts, videos, and articles that will provide you a balanced meal of content. You will find culture celebrated for its past and future, satirized for its extremes, explored in study, and created anew in story. Point your web browser to culturebox.media.
There was a 5th person here?
Where'd that voice come from?
Anyway, he's right. Now we're part of the Culture Box Media Network. Find all the shows unpacking truth through story, comedy, and geekery at culturebox.media. And with that, Captain, it looks like we need to wait for the next riddle to unlock.
Thank you, EXO, and thank you all for listening. We pray you are more joyful today than when you first hit play. But like a Pokemon, we gotta catch you all for the next episode. Once we figured out what that is, help us in our ship's log to figure it out. The next episode of the Retro Rewind podcast.
4th dimension of D mission complete. Decoding next riddle. View RRP ship's logs for more details.
Dorothy!
Awesome, guys.
It's green, Dorothy.
That was my. Why did I totally forget? That was my tragic maker.
What are you talking about? Every time, like, I'm stopped at a light, and my brother and I will say, "It's green, Dorothy."
No. It's like that. She just lucks into figuring that out.
And in the books? In the books? Okay.
I'm so sorry. I'm going to have to redo my tragic maker.
I'm just going to tell you. Can I just tell you right now that in the books, the chicken hides under the throne of the Gnome King, and she eavesdrops, and she actually listens to the Gnome King talking to like one of his gnomes about how all of the people are disguised, and they're actually able to figure out the royal family that the Gnome King basically kidnapped and put like the head swapping person in charge, and figured out all the people who got transformed because they were identifiable by color. And it's only because the chicken stayed behind and eavesdropped.
That's great, but I'm talking about the movie, Ashley. So let me do my tragic maker because that is a cool factoid. But okay, so guys,
that's great, Francisco. But what does that have to do with the movie?
Or anything in general.
So I want to get to my tragic maker now, guys, and that's that at the end, sort of the kind of climax of the movie, not quite. Dorothy's she's touched 2 items, trying to figure out where the scarecrow is, and she ultimately decides, you know what? Let me just close my eyes, spin around, just like walk. And she picks up this one item. She opens her eyes, like, oh, there's this green thing right next to it. Let's do that. I hate that she just lucked into it. And I think, Ashley, you've said that just is how it happens in the books, right? That it's the same in the book. She just lucks into picking the right one.
That's not what happens at all.
Oh, she doesn't luck into it?
No, there's actually an explanation in the book.
Oh.
The chicken wasn't hiding in a pumpkin head. The chicken actually hid in plain sight and actually hid under the throne of the Gnome King and actually heard him give away the answers when he was talking to one of his gnomes.
Oh.
So she actually played more of a role instead of just hanging out in a pumpkin head.
Oh, okay. And so she told Dorothy where to go and what to do.
Yes, she actually told Dorothy.
She's under the seat.
She came out, so she actually was with Dorothy. She was hiding with her.
Oh, okay.
And
This
she
sounds so
hid.
convoluted. Let's just have her run into it.
No matter how it's presented, book, movie, whatever explanation, it's for children. It's going to be convoluted.
But I hate. Okay, I would have preferred that.
Sometimes
I hate. You want your hero to be smart and cunning and outwit the enemy. I like that type of hero. I don't like, let me just luck into winning.
You don't like things that happen by happenstance.
See, this. Oh,
yes, that would have worked even better. Yes.
Go
ahead, James.
Agree here.
Okay, all right.
But this actually led into sort of a spiritual kind of idea question.
Oh, well, you know what? Let's whet the appetite for the people that to listen to the spiritual speculation. So can you like give a little sneak peek or not quite?
A little hint.
Well, this is like the Raiders of the Lost Ark syndrome. This is the same accusation that people make about Indiana Jones in Raiders of the Lost Ark, and it's he really makes no difference in his being there, or so things. The protagonist is not the one who outwits or truly actually achieves much of anything, and where people say that is a weakness of Raiders of the Lost Ark, and maybe perhaps then some elements here in Return to Oz, I would at least question or argue if maybe it's a strength of the story.
Okay, and I could see where you might take that. So maybe we'll expand that more in our spiritual speculation. But I still hate that she looked into it. Anyway, that is my tragic maker before Return to Oz. Okay, then I'll edit that back over my weak sauce flying over the desert comment. What was that about?
Isn't that like Edna mode number 5 or 6 at this point?
That doesn't count as end mode. That just is.
I was gonna say Edna number 5.
Fine, whatever.
I'll
guys.
make a song about it, Francisco.
Is that like Love Potion number 5?
No. Instead of Mambo number 5, it'll be Edna number 5.
No, I like Edna Mo number 5.
That's 9. Let's go for
That's
9.
Love Potion.
Oh, it's
9,
Love Potion. Oh.
And absolutely not. No. Give me time.
I don't know
I'll
songs,
write a song.
guys.
I
Okay.
do.
Ashley, James, Paul, do any of you have to take a break before we get into our spiritual speculation section? Or if you're good to go, just thumbs up and we'll continue on.
I can take a break. And there you go.
Okay, Power Rangers, let's do it!
Good to go. 3 seconds. We're good.
Good. I'm glad you really
He's a professional.
I was gonna say actuate yourself, but that's I don't think that's the right word.
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
No, I don't. All right.
I don't understand anything coming out of yours.
Then let's get to it. Okay.
He ain't gonna be in Rush Hour 3.
These sounds have nothing to do with anything, Paul.
Doesn't matter. They're fun.
Welcome, Reflux Capacitors, to another spiritual speculation where we delve into the spiritual themes and questions that the movies and games we cover on the podcast prompt us to think about. Tonight we're going to be discussing the spiritual elements of Return to Oz, if there were any, which you can listen to that review at retrorewindpodcast.com/turn70. But before we get into that, let's go around real quick and give you our spiritual backgrounds. We'll say who we are, what our spiritual life was growing up, and what we currently believe today. So I'm Francisco. I was raised Presbyterian, which is a Christian Protestant denomination. And I'm currently a non-denominational Protestant Christian. Let's go with Ashley next.
Hi, I'm Ashley. I was raised Catholic, and now I am a non-denominational Protestant Christian.
All right. James.
Well, I was raised in an independent Christian church and took about a decade off and segued into a more Reformed Presbyterian style of denomination.
Okay, cool. And Paul.
I was raised on a farm in Kansas, and I had these many trips to a magical place, and I couldn't tell what was reality until I found Jesus.
That's good, Paul.
He showed you the way because he's the way, the truth, and the life. I'm glad he made paths straight for you, Paul, and he helped you figure out fiction and from reality.
Yes, exactly. Wow. Okay, guys. So we're going to start tonight with James. Watching Return to Oz, what sort of spoke to you spiritually? And this is something you regularly do on Popcorn Theology, right? If people want to check out.
I was about to say, this is a little mini episode of Popcorn Theology.
Yeah, exactly.
It's my bread and butter. Great. Now this better be really awesome.
On the spot.
I dropped the ball here. It's all downhill. Well, it's actually something you mentioned very, very off the cuff and from the hip earlier in the episode when we were talking about Dorothy spins around, and then walks into and finds that bumps the green thing, opens her eyes, and what she's actually grabbing is something else. But then she either she realizes that she sort of first bumped that green gem, or just something about it catches her. But it's like for some reason she goes for it, and I think that. It was so interesting that you actually referred to it. She lucked into it. Yeah,
exactly.
I looked back over the whole course of the film. And it's like, all right, our protagonist is literally tied to a bed. So she has to be freed from that right at the beginning to even escape. She needs help to escape. Then there's the blind spinning thing. Then there's even the fact that the egg falling into the Rock King's, it's sheer accident. Or what we would say, just nothing really seems to be intentional very often. The escape from Mommy's lair is crafted by Dorothy. So she and the others get to be participants in the story, but really, there's some key moments. Like absolutely, you would either say she lucked into them, or so. And that's it. Brought that idea or the question to mind for me. It's like, how do we view success? Or maybe just survival in the case of some aspects. How do we view success or survival in our lives based on things outside our control? Do we think luck, fate, or providence?
Is this predestination versus free will?
It could be.
Well, but let me see if I'm gonna try to unpack what you're getting at, James, and tell me if I'm off. But is it something to the effect of, okay, let's say I got a new job, and it's like yeah, I may have the skills. You could say, okay, I had the skills for that. Of course, I got that new job because of my merit. And then on this, but then let's say I lose the job, and then but why? I was doing great. Well, economy downturn. Well, but I earned that job. Why don't I get to keep it? And then for whatever reason, because you lost that job, you met the person you're going to spend the rest of your life with, and you, for whatever reason, there seems to be no connection. You never would have met that person if you hadn't lost your job. Not saying that you're always going to have a good thing happen after a bad thing or anything like that, but are you saying some of the effect of, well, I mean, it's not always about what you do. Sometimes it's just about God's goodness and His grace and how He's ordered things to work. Is that what you're getting at, or am I way off?
I think that's a part of it.
Okay.
And absolutely. But I also think, like, what do we think that those things are? Do we think? I mean, think about Return to Oz a little more specifically.
Mm-hmm.
Like, obviously, this story, Dorothy's the protagonist. Dorothy's definitely going to move from the beginning to the end, and we literally know. So, like, behind the curtain, and not where the wizard is. A different movie, but
a worse movie.
There's shots fired. There's a writer, there's a writer and a director. I think there's a screenplay, so she's going to succeed, but it's not entirely on her merit. It's like I think for Christians, there's an aspect of, oh, God, it's Scripture said he's declared the end from the beginning. It's like however I get from A to Z in James's life, I get to be a participant, but I'm not in control. And do I believe there's an author, or do I just believe it's random?
Okay.
So that doesn't always mean that it's going to be a positive outcome, like you're saying.
Yeah,
like that,
absolutely.
It also works in those things. So even when there's a negative outcome in my life, and even if I can't see any good consequence, but do I believe there's an author working behind it? And do I believe, ultimately, like Romans talks about, or for those called according to His purpose, things will work for good? Do I still have that thought in it? And so, they're in their darkest place. The chicken's hiding in a pumpkin, but something else. Like, either that was just, boy, they got lucky. What a chance, cosmic coincidence. just like that Big Bang that kind of threw this all starting at the beginning. Like, you know what I mean? Or is it like, or did somebody, in this case, we know somebody wrote that ending so that evil would be defeated. It's like, in my theology, I believe there's an author that has written the defeat of evil, and probably I'm not going to be the killing blow. You know what I mean? It's something else. So in fact, maybe the mortal blows already happened.
Yeah. Exactly. Yes.
Like, the egg's already going in there, and it's like poison. We're just waiting for the dissolution.
Yes. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, let me. Oh my gosh, Paul.
Wait. Are you telling me that Francisco's Tragic Maker is God working in my life?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh wow! Wow! I just put a nice pin on that.
I was gonna say, is it happenstance that you have someone randomly start listening to a podcast and friendships form, and you get to know someone over time, and then it blossoms into something else, and then somehow a romance forms, and then you find yourself married to that person that started listening to your podcast.
Yeah.
Do all these things happen by happenstance? And then that person that you married, they're living in another state, and then somehow someone in their job transitions to leadership, opening up a position to work from home and letting them into that space. Is it just happenstance, or is there something greater? And we should be putting our trust into this author, because anytime we try to do things within our own control, we think we have control, but it's just an illusion. And I put my stake that there is an author, and he's the one that is allowing all these things to happen. And it has nothing to do with us. So just whether or not we put our trust in that author.
Okay, guys, I hear you loud and clear what you're saying. And I think for us, actually, before I get on my diatribe, Paul, what do you make of all of this? Do you feel like it's you learn all of what, Francisco?
The music just.
I mean, Where do you feel like about
honestly,
authorship? And yeah, go for it. Yes, honestly. God contrived all of these cosmos. What's going on, God?
No. It's. This goes back to, it kind of ties in what people try to figure out what God's will is. There's a lot of things happening.
Yeah.
And we can't, because we have free will, or at least I believe we have free will. There are certain things that we will gravitate for, whether it's because of our own choosing or whether it's because that's how we were raised or whatever. Whatever helps us decide whatever we do.
Yeah.
Again, providence versus is it free will or is it?
I say both. It's both.
Can be both.
Right. Sure. Well, it's honestly, it's beyond what I could say here
Yeah,
on
absolutely,
a podcast or even ever.
We got time. We got till 11:59:59. Just go, Paul.
Come on, Paul. Just let that be the first thing that you ask God on the other side. Like, is it this or is it this?
Right. God is laying out these things that happens in life, and we are
like an
all
egg.
like
yes.
Sorry.
Oh my gosh.
And we are all interacting in that. And honestly, I think there are times where people say, yes, this is God's will. And I'm thinking, maybe, but maybe not. I think you just wanted to make it happen. So you planned and worked accordingly.
We sort of talked about that in the last speculation too. Yeah.
And some people say, well, that's God working. And other people will be like, well, that's almost God has taken a back seat on that and said, like, that's up to you if you want that to work or not. Honestly, I don't know, but I do understand why people are confused about that.
Yeah,
is where I'm coming from on that.
Yeah, what do you think drives that confusion, or what do you think is
because
like
you honestly don't know? I mean, that's where faith comes in.
Yeah.
We don't see the strings that are tying each one and who's pulling them. You know what I mean? Versus, and we don't know like this. Yes, this is God's plan, and or if like well, sure, why not? Versus no, I don't know. There
Wait,
are many
gnome? Why are we talking about the Gnome King?
The Gnome King, yes.
Yeah.
There are many answers to this. As I think there are more answers, unfortunately, than there are people that are involved, and that's what makes it so confusing.
There are more answers than people involved.
Yes. Is this God's will? Yes. No. Maybe. So, and that's for every person involved in that scenario.
Oh, okay. Now, thank you. I was having trouble parsing that.
So, do I believe it's possible that God is ultimately in control of all this? Absolutely. Do I believe it's possible that he's letting go of some of that control and allows us to make decisions based on that? Yes.
Yeah.
Am I right or wrong? I don't know.
Both.
Maybe.
So
I don't add to the confusion.
Yeah, no, I get it. You definitely add to the confusion. Thank you. And I don't really have anything to address what you're saying. I'm going to bring it back to Dorothy and Return to Oz.
Oh yes.
And that's not me saying that what you had to say isn't valid at all, Paul. No, I totally get that, and maybe we'll swing back to it.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
No,
but
let's stay on topic. It'll be less confusing, please.
Maybe. So I think for us who are Christians and recognize that we have made Jesus the Lord of our life. He's the one. We're going to follow you, God. We're going to follow you, Jesus. If you say jump, we say how high, etc. I think we have that and His word to us as like a not only a guide but also a conversation in a way to understand what His will for us is. Dorothy doesn't have anything like that. That's why I feel like it's more in the luck category. Not that. I mean, certainly God has common grace on believers and unbelievers. That's certainly true. Things will turn out nicely sometimes for unbelievers. I'm not saying that never happens. Like if you don't believe in God, then nothing good can happen to you. I'm not trying to say that, at least earthly good. But I think I guess I want to say there's some element to Well, you know what? I was gonna say I think I want there to be something more when you do put your belief in God that colors or that brings a wholeness to the things that you just label as chance. And maybe that's just what it is. Maybe if you see things only as chance, and I'm sort of working this out as I'm talking.
I was about to say, I'm confused because here we are watching a fictional movie, a fictional story, and the whole premises of this is like, okay, let's talk about something spiritual, something real about this, and then your answer is, but it's not real. It's a fictional story. And you're like, well, which way are you going?
I'm trying to say that in the fictional story, there's real world applications for fictional people. No, what I'm trying to get at is that when I sort of lost my train of thought now.
Woo woo.
Francisco.
Why don't you buy James's answer?
What?
No, I think I do buy James's answer. I just think that
about how the screen.
I would buy James's answer if there was some book that Dorothy read that was a book from Walter Murray, and there isn't.
I feel like Francisco, for Dorothy, it was having faith. And it wasn't necessarily faith in something that had proven itself. There was no guidepost. There was no divine communication that was God-breathed and inspired. And there was none of that. But based on her past experiences and all the people that she came into contact with, she had to believe in herself, and she had to trust that if she believed and hoped that somehow it would all work out, that it would. Because this was a place where these things happened. And even in the worst situations, when she was in Oz the first time with the Wicked Witch of the West, and she just so happened to splash some water, and then that witch melted. And yes, it was just happenstance, but she had to trust. She had to trust that no matter what happened, that she would somehow make it through, because she wanted to save her friends. Honestly, Francisco, if she didn't have any kind of belief, they'd all be ornaments.
Are you trying to tell me that we experience God in a certain way, and that leads us to want to have a relationship with God?
Yes!
Is that what you're trying to tell me?
That's exactly what I'm saying. And Dorothy may not have a divine presence in her life, but based on her relationships with her friends and with the people of Oz, she has to have this hope, and she wants to do good. And there are all these illusions that happen within these stories, and even though she doesn't have someone that laid it all down and took her place and was the word and gave the word to the people so that they could have communication and find that relationship with people, she had a kind of faith. And yes, things could happen, but she had a kind of faith in herself, and a faith in her friends, and a faith that good would triumph over evil.
And something beyond too, right? I mean, she almost has an angelic helper and messenger in Ozma, even though actually it doesn't make sense at all.
It doesn't, and it's okay because it's a story for children.
So she's had divine Oz intervention already, like periodically throughout the flick. So it's almost just like I think it is a metaphor.
Scarecrow and the key. Before he got caught by the Gnome King, and like getting that foreshadow and making that connection with like TikTok, and him saying, well, how did you get it? And then she like put two and two together. It's like, he sent it on a shooting star and it came. So she's had these intercessions, and people have helped her, and it has been her friends in different ways. So she can trust, and she can believe that somehow, even when the odds are against them, it's worked out before, it can work out again.
And I think all we ever get in most movies, like from Hollywood, all I expect is like she literally puts on a blindfold. So it's like she's gonna have blind faith, right? I mean, and usually in Hollywood movies, it's like faith. Sometimes faith in self, or just faith in faith, or faith in some kind of force, whether it's the Star Wars kind or not. That might be your midichlorian count, but whatever. And right, but it's like all you get is that it's faith in something higher, and like that's about all I ever expect to get out of a Hollywood movie, because it's not like they're gonna go to my faith.
Exactly. Yes. Real quick from chat, and we will try to circle back to your comment, Dale. But D. Tungsten says the real Jesus was the friends we made along the way. I don't think that's what we're trying to say. I think we're trying to say that they are an allegory in a sense to what Jesus is. Is that
they point to the real Jesus?
I think that's what we're trying to say. Or is that what you're trying to allude to, Ashley? Or am I misinterpreting you?
I think you're pretty close. I mean, honestly, she's just believing in more than her. She's believing in more than herself, and just based on intuition, based on experience. She has hope. It's not just faith, but she has this hope that even when things are at their darkest, there's always light and there's always the opportunity for things to get better. Okay. So she has some fruits of the spirit. She's a dumb kid. She is a young kid. She doesn't know any better, and she's just going off of her experience. And hope and faith are very, very strong emotions, very strong gifts that we can experience. And she's had to trust. She's a little girl. She's 10 years old. She's going based on all the things that have presented themselves and the things that she's been through. She doesn't really have too much foresight. She doesn't really think too much into the distant future. So she just has to go off of what she knows.
That's fair. Anything more about your thought or question about this, James, before I move on? Or did you even give your thoughts on your own question?
Well, no, I think we've fleshed it out pretty well. I think the way I would pose the question to people too, just to even split the difference from what Paul was talking about, is just like when we talk about luck, that's just sort of happenstance. When we talk about fate, that's when we're talking about predetermination, like to every detail. Yeah, and I think then the debate or the acceptable middle ground is kind of providence, because there is that even within Christianity, right? There's Calvinist, Arminian, like there's all the different variations. Like, are there times where I think some people would call when what you're talking about, Paul, when he steps back and like there's intervention, and then there does seem like there's almost times where the hands are off, which is its own form of indirect providence. Like leaving somebody to their own devices, you could say, is its own form of providence. Sure. But it's in the middle. So I think several different streams of that concept can exist within providence without being absolutely 100% predetermined as we understand fate. So And I think in Return to Oz, you more see that you see the sort of intervening characters. Just like she still has many of her own choices that she makes that get them from A to B to C, but then there are points where there are key points where the ultimate victory is kind of either by luck or by another, or we believe there is a helpful hand in that mix. Right. So providence kind of splits the difference and allows for some variant conversations about how God works.
So to say that she returned to Oz because she was predestined to, because it's in the title,
well, that part would be fixed. Yeah,
you're looking at the wrong area. It's not that was predestined. It's why it was predestined, so that she could help and save Oz.
Yeah, yes, but then the choices when she got there weren't necessarily predestined. Some of them. You got to eat those lunch pail treat things.
The same person who wrote the title also wrote her action, so that's where it gets murky.
All right.
I didn't expect to get deeper into the weeds on the free will stuff. That's cool.
Let's see. Let me, before I get to my speculation, which is sometimes I'm afraid I'm going to have the exact same one as someone else, but fortunately mine's a bit different. But let's get into what Dale's saying. I think that because this might just flesh out what we're talking about even more. He says in the movie Return to Oz, I believe, Dorothy's aunt and uncle are troubled by their niece's depression. Her going on about her dreams of Oz have taken a toll. Like she's not sleeping. By the way, if she's not sleeping, what do they care? They can sleep. Just go to sleep. It's okay. If it's not going to sleep, fine. Just sleep.
How would they know she's not sleeping?
Yeah.
Asleep?
Yeah.
Because they weren't asleep. They were randomly up at 1 a.m.
Yeah. Whose fault is that?
That was their. You're on a farm. You wake up before the sun comes up. Why are you awake at 1 a.m.? Yeah. You're squandering those precious hours of sleep.
Yeah.
Some farmers you are.
I didn't see a clock in there. How do you know it's 1 a.m.? Jeez.
She just said it was, so we have to go on what is said.
According to my moon dial.
Storytelling.
God said, Walter Merck, the God of this universe, said it's 1, so it's 1. So Dale continues to the point where she is taken to a place to have it remedied, her dreams and stuff. Dorothy is continually trying to convince her guardians that Oz is true, and the guardians are having trouble snapping her back into reality. How do we help God's children back to the truth when they have been led astray? So it's a little different because in this, as far as what you're saying about Oz being real, that is the truth. I mean, this is almost like the dynamic of a child that believes in God, but her parents don't. Like the child knows the truth.
Reversed.
Yeah, but if the situation were reversed, how would we like steer our kids back to the truth? And I mean, for me, I think it's just you. When my kids ask me questions about my faith, I just tell them my experience with God, where God has come through for me, as best as I can, why I believe him to be true and right and the Lord of my life. And I think that's sometimes all you can do, because you and your kids, you're in a relationship. You're not their manager. I mean, and sometimes you are, but you're not they're not your little robots that you get to control everything they do. They have their own free will. I believe they sin, they do good. I mean, it's a whole mixed bag. And so all you could do is you try to, I mean, when they're younger, you're certainly having more of a hands-on approach to things, but as they age, you're doing more coaching, you're doing more just being a sage for them. And so I think you could just you be in the Word so that you can reflect God's light and his truth to others that you're in relationship with, all the better. That's my answer to it. James, what would your answer to that be?
Well, I'm looking at this I'm reading. It says, how do we help God's children back to truth when we've been led astray? That's like, well, I think.
I guess I was thinking literal children. Maybe he just means children in general.
Children in general, believers who have backslid.
Okay.
Are you talking about, because I feel like there's points in time. James had said that he kind of took like
a 10-year break.
A 10-year break. I did the same thing. I walked away from my faith when I was a teenager. It was about an almost decade-long period of time, and I went from one faith tradition to a completely different faith tradition. Back when I was being raised, I didn't have a relationship. It was never a relationship. It was about the church tradition and going through rituals and things to that. And I never had a relationship. God was like this distant father figure out in the outer world. And yes, Jesus did all these things, but I never had I never felt like I had a direct connection because there were all these intermediaries that kind of led their tradition and led my faith, and I never felt like I was playing an active role in it. And it was so different the second time around because I did come from a relational standpoint, because I legitimately felt like God was using all the people in my life to speak to me, getting my attention to things that happened, and it's been so different this side off, and it has been relational. And I feel like I would do the same exact thing you do, Francisco, in like sharing the relationship that I have and the experiences that I have, and beyond that, I don't know.
Yeah, James, how were you gonna answer that, or do your best to?
Well, it's funny too. First I want to mention I thought of it in reverse when I was watching the movie.
Oh, okay.
In fact, that was. Like I would have interpreted
how to draw children into hell.
Oh my God!
Yes, of course.
This movie's perfect for that. Okay.
In the opening
scenes
scenes,
of the world.
Yes, they're awesome. We have cookies. But no, the way I was looking at it was when I was first watching the movie, it felt like she was the believer. You know what I mean? Like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Like she. Whereas it's almost this idea of they're pushing there's only the material world, and I would say I like the fact, I think even if you make this analogous to the secular world, right, they're going to say, okay, what you think is TikTok is actually just this electronic machine, this
from China,
shock machine, like
spying on us.
Like the alternative viewpoint to the Christian faith is going to secularize all of the items. They're going to say, no, there's no providence, there's happenstance. They're going to reverse it. So there's almost a little bit. And they're going to think you need therapy, they think Dorothy does. But if you flip that around, I was thinking about just anybody. I was a non-Christian. I walked away from like 15 to 25, and I was thinking about this in my own story, and also with a little Return to Oz flavor. What I needed to do at 25, I actually met. I walked into a church that had a really engaging ministry for my age group, and they sat down and would actually help refute the straw man arguments. There you go with the scarecrow, right? It's like, well, let's look at the things you're kind of buying into, and this isn't an ironclad argument. It's kind of made of tin, right? So like they would actually walk with me a little bit, and ultimately, like I came to the realization that I had never really ceased to be a believer. I was just running away from it because I was a bit of a cowardly lion. So that was, I was looking for other answers to satisfy those things. I was, and it's like, oh no, like somewhere like Romans 1 says, I was suppressing the truth. And it's like, I had to kind of realize all the arguments I was piling on top were just sort of, they had to get unraveled. So
they were sand like Toto.
Yeah, exactly.
I would say you knew not to set foot. You knew not to set foot in that desert based on experience and based on what the word said. Yeah. It kind of safeguarded you from turning into sand by setting foot in that desert.
Yeah. Well, so I guess what I think is to help somebody from being led astray, you have to enter into their world and know what are the other things they're pulling them toward them. Yeah. What are they walking toward? And it's like, well, I guess let's talk about those things so that we can kind of course, I want to lead you back on what I think is the yellow brick road to the kingdom. But I have to kind of know what they're talking about, which is that's kind of why I do the podcast we do, right? Just like let's enter into the stories you like, and maybe there's a tug at you're being tugged into those who don't really care about the story I think really matters. So where are you at? And maybe there's some stuff in there that you're actually yearning for. You don't know, like rather than just saying whatever you're thinking right now is wrong. Like, well, are there any kernels in there we can work with? And maybe.
And I think this leads to a point that I think you expressed. I'm pretty sure it's in Synagogue. Maybe I'm completely confusing, but the whole episode where Paul is at the Areopagus and sort of talks to the Greeks about, you have an altar to the unknown God, and actually brings in Greek poetry and Greek myth and tells them, well, this is actually pointing at this actual person named Jesus. So let's talk about, is that kind of what you're getting at, James?
And I love that. In Acts chapter 17, probably one of my go-to chapter of the Bible. I know we shouldn't have favorites, but I do. It's all God breathed and useful for instruction and teaching, and I get it. But Acts 17 is I love that fact, and I think scholars, this is extra biblical, but scholars have tried to pinpoint what Paul is quoting, and what they actually believe he's quoting is a poem by a guy named Aratus, and it probably is a poem talking about Zeus.
Okay,
and but Paul isn't saying, God, Jesus and Zeus are the same, or the Father and Zeus. He's not saying that, but he's willing to take that snippet and say, look at this cool quote right here. That's totally spot on. Here's some common ground, but what if it's maybe something? So it's like finding common ground. Any common ground you can is the way to hopefully walk somebody back from being astray. That's just a better starting point than a lot of what I grew up with was all your rock music is bad. All your Tim Burton movies are bad. It's just like, don't read Stephen King. It's like, wait, there's actually, maybe there's something we can find in here. Maybe we can find that Aratus quote to work with.
Everything you're doing is bad. I want you to know this.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, awesome. Well, hopefully that helps you, Dale. Let us know if that gets you sort of, if you think there's a better answer, would be interested in your input. Let's go on to my sort of spiritual speculation. I'm going to give this a little bit of setup. So I'm going to read. This is John, chapter 12, verses. Let's see where I'm going to start. I'm just going to start in verse 20. It's about 6 verses here. Then I forget what this is, the NASB 95, because that's my go-to. I don't know why. I just picked that one. I like NASB. I don't know why I choose 95 though. I just do. Because I'm American. Anyway, This is the subhead, which is also extra biblical. They weren't in their original. It says Greeks seek Jesus. So now there were some Greeks among those who were going up to worship at the feast. And I forget which feast this was. I wish I had a better sense of this. May be the Feast of Booze. This may be Passover feast. Oh my gosh, Paul. Oh no, this must be Passover, because just before this is Jesus entering with the palm trees and Hosanna, Hosanna. Okay, so this is Passover feast. Okay, now there were some Greeks among those who were going up to worship at the feast. These then came to Philip, who was from Bethsaida of Galilee, and began to ask him, saying, "Sir, we wish to see Jesus," because they're British, Philip came and told Andrew. Andrew and Philip came and told Jesus, and Jesus answered them, saying, "The hour has come for the Son of Man to be glorified. Truly, truly, I say to you, unless a grain of wheat falls into the earth and dies, it remains alone. But if it dies, it bears much fruit. He who loves his life loses it, and he who hates his life in this world will keep it to life eternal. If anyone serves me, he must follow me, and where I am, there my servant will be also. If anyone serves me, the Father will honor him." So how this relates at all to Return to Oz is I was thinking of that moment, whether or not we think it's contrived, where Belina is laying the egg, and the egg, which is this almost symbol, it's almost like a mammalian seed, I guess I'll say. It will, if it's fertilized, it will become life. The egg has to cease to exist. It can't be an egg anymore, but then you get a full-blown chicken from it, much like a seed has to die to become a tree and actually provide shade, provide fruit. And Jesus is talking about himself as a wheat seed here that needs to die in the earth to be raised up and actually become glorified. So that just got me thinking. So I connected, okay, this egg, it seems like a picture of that dying to bring wholeness and life, because it destroys the death, or the Satan analogy in this film of the Gnome King. It kills him and brings life to all the characters. So I don't know what you guys make of that. Do you see something different there? Do you see the same thing? I want only agreement, so agree with me.
You would always want that. And that spurs another thought as
well.
Go
for it. Yes.
Where before she traveled to Oz, Belina was not really able to lay eggs.
Oh,
and
yeah.
somehow there was this renewal that she experienced by somehow being able to speak and feel like she's truly alive and not feel like she's getting a new life in Oz, so to speak.
Yeah.
And now she's able to lay eggs, because that was a struggle. Because Dorothy even made a comment early on in the movie that she was going to end up being dinner, basically, if she didn't serve her purpose and lay an egg. And she was struggling, so she got this new life.
Yeah.
And I think that goes with your analogy with the egg having the potential for new life, just as the seed has the potential for new life, just as with Jesus, we are given new life.
Yeah, exactly. So Belina is Sarah, who's barren until she's 90. And then she's able to conceive Isaac, which kills the Gnome King. I think I'm rocking and rolling with you here. See, rock, Gnome King.
Nice.
Oh, my word.
Paul or James, what do you make of that? Do you make a completely different connection? Go ahead, James.
I thought you were gonna correlate it with Toto falling in the sand, but fortunately you didn't go there.
I came this close, but I was like, let's give us some breathing room before we bring back that joke.
Okay, good. Well, you mentioned seed, and when I just play it off that, it's like that you're talking about, like, obviously it brings new life. So I like the fact that I kind of missed that point about Belina, actually. So that's pretty cool. But your mind made me flash. Your comment kind of flashed me back to Genesis 3:15, because it talks about, right, the promise to the serpent, the promise to evil, right at the garden, is I'll put enmity between you and the woman, and between your seed and hers. It shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise the heel.
But yeah.
So here it is, holding Jack by the heels, and
wow,
this sort of thing drops down the throat, and evil down into its big, massive head, and evil's destroyed.
Yes.
So it's kind of
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, I've got some.
That's
there's some
interesting.
biblical metaphor there.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
have another random point for you that actually it's a bonus. It's from the books.
Okay.
And it's actually the main reason why the gnomes are actually, they believe that eggs are poison, and why this is something that actually came from the inner workings of L. Frank Baum. But eggs are laid by female chickens. It's the matriarchy, and the gnome society that the Gnome King is part of, all the gnomes are male. And you've got this male female connotation, and they're afraid of things they don't know because it's an all male society, and eggs only come from female chickens. Therefore, since it is distinct from what they are, it is poisonous because it's unknown.
Oh, interesting.
So there's all these male female connections and connotations, and the fact that the egg is coming down to slay and be poison and destroy the evil. It's coming from the woman who crushes the head of the serpent. Like, it's just...
Well, that actually makes me go into complete another sort of realm of that, and we'll let you give it. We'll give you a chance to talk here, Paul, in a second.
No, I'm lost. So I'm
you're lost. Okay.
Journey with you guys. Keep on going.
Is that God made Satan or Lucifer then and his angels, like made the whole divine council, and then Satan decides, I want to be higher than you. I want to I want to make myself higher than God, and God casts him out of heaven. And then he's made angels, which don't bear the image of God. They are made from God, but they're made by God, but they're not made in the image of God. And then he makes humans wholly different from angels. We do not become angels, boys and girls, when we die.
No wings.
We are not. We are glorified human beings, because we're image bearers of God. And so that made me your whole gnome chicken or male female comparison with the gnome society and females. Not that humans, men and women, were both made in the image of God, but this whole dichotomy in the Oz books of the mountain gnomes and hens with our matriarchy, even though I don't think they are.
They're not. No, it's
the
not.
Rooster is
it's just the ability to lay eggs is
Yeah.
innately female, and the gnomes male.
So there's this desire to destroy all the things that bring life and bear the image of God. In Satan's point of view, he wants to destroy us. He wants to steal from us, all that. And so it made me think of that battle that's always been going on. So still lost on this journey with us, Paul. Are you just flying us? You're just like, I'll just go.
And like the second life is weirder than my first.
Yeah.
Did you guys catch where the Gump was made, or where he was originally from?
I forget.
No, where?
He said he was in the forest, and then all of a sudden...
So he's a Forrest Gump.
Oh, okay. Wait, like the movie? Wait, but that came out later,
That
right?
came out in 94. 94? Was it 93 or 94?
This was way before.
I think so.
Okay, but was Forrest Gump a callback to Return to Oz? Like, is that why he's named that in the movie?
You
I have
to
no
ask
idea.
the writer.
Okay.
It's just a fun little...
I'll get Bob Zemeckis on the phone. Or Brian
writer,
Singer.
he's the
Okay,
director.
well, fine, whatever,
Lose
Paul.
Brian Singer's number, guys. Just lose it.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, cool. Well, then that's all I had. Any other thoughts or promptings? Paul, did you have anything from this conversation or anything like that you want to speak your mind before we skedaddle?
Yeah, Eric Roth was the writer of Forrest Gump.
Okay, I'll go ask Eric. Thank you. Appreciate that. I have all their numbers. Yes. All right, guys. Then we're going to go ahead and call it there unless there's any last comments or... Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, Paul.
Sorry,
thank you so much.
Winston Groom wrote the novel. Sorry. Eric Roth wrote the screenplay, but it's Winston Groom. Sorry, Winston. Sorry, what? Francisco, you sound like a leaky
Thank you,
tire.
Paul. Thank you, James. Thank you, Ashley. And thank you, our Reflex capacitors, for supporting this content. We pray it was inspiring or educational or just something that you will entertain in your mind. But for all of us, we bid you all shalom.
That means peace.
Oh my God. gosh. What are you going to do when Snapchat goes away, Paul? I can't have your baby face anymore.
Oh, man.
All right. Well, everyone here in chat, Neko, Cellcasting for the raid, Bobo, let's see, D-Tungsten, I don't know why I said your name so fanatically.
No, that was his ego deflating, guys.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's what that was. We got to take Smug Cisco down just a teeny
Dale,
peg.
David Gardner, thank you all so much for being here. We're going to go ahead and close out. Usually what I do at the end of streams, Paul and Ashley know this, but James, we just make a silly face. I call it our stream face, and that's how we go out. Yes, you can have your baby face, Paul, for our stream face. So if you'd like to join us, feel free. Otherwise, you don't have to. But until next time, guys, we'll see you back tomorrow morning for Secret of Mana, streaming that. But until then, here's your stream face. Keep going. Oh,